And welcome into the Wednesday edition. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Robbie Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Nick Keyser, intern Robert here with you on this Wednesday morning. Hope everybody's off to a wonderful start to their Wednesday morning today. Paul Kuharski from paulkuharski.com will be with us later in the program. We got a lot to get into with PK, including maybe some ridiculing his takes that will take place later in the program.
That could be. It could be appropriate today.
I think that might happen. We'll take your thoughts on all that. In the meantime, 615-737-1025. Rexrode, how we doing? What's going on?
Doing okay. Wondering why the Preds gave up a touchdown last night, but, summer hockey.
Did not go well.
I hear a lot of summer hockey from Andrew Brunette.
Well, that's kind of his go-to phrase right now.
Just kind of skating around.
He was not happy.
Taking some shots.
Night. Not that I expect him to be happy after a 7-3 loss at home to start off the season 0-3, but you could see it in his face last night. He was irked, I think is probably the right word, after the game last night. I said it yesterday. We're early into the year, right? So I do my best not to overreact. And how many times do we have to see it in hockey? I mean, it happens every year. There's a team every year that comes out of the gate and they just cannot for the life of themselves find a win in the first week or two of the season, and then they go on some run and they make the playoffs. And Edmonton was the example last year, but you can look back over most years and there's a team that starts off really slow and they end up finding a way to make the playoffs. So all that to say, there's still 79 games left in the season. There's a long way to go here. I will say though, last night was a pretty significant step back. Like at least in the first two, I mean, you outplayed Dallas, I think, for a decent bit of that game in game one, and you had about a 7-minute stretch where you made a couple dumb mistakes and it ended up in the back of your net. And you did, quite frankly, and Barry Trotz said as much yesterday, and I agree with him. Scott Wedgwood wasn't very good, and he didn't get a save in game one, so that just kind of is what it is. Game two, a lot of great looks. I thought Cam Talbot for Detroit played great, and he just kind of got stonewalled by a hot goalie. Sometimes that happens in the course of an 82-game season. Last night, defensively, and some of the decisions they're making with the puck right now are awful. I mean, it was the amount of odd man rushes that they're giving up. They gave up a ton last night in that game. And look, Seattle's got some good skaters, and if you don't take care of the puck, they'll make you pay for it, and they did that. But it was constant, the amount of odd man rushes they were giving up last night. I thought last night, the first two were one thing. Last night was a pretty significant step back for them, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I'm listening to Brunette talk to Pete Weber, talking about, this is a rush team and you gotta, obviously you can't serve it up to them basically. And then you serve it up to them after, you talk about that going to the game and you do exactly what you said you didn't want to do. So there's mistakes and, getting used to the system still. There's new pieces, there's things like that, right? You're going to have mistakes, but also is there a failing intensity right now with some guys out there? Like, is it to that extent? I mean, again, because like the summer hockey talk to me, that's what it says to me. Is sort of like, and what else did you say last night? We're trying to show everybody how skilled everybody is and things like that.
Yeah,
not much sandpaper in the game.
Brunette said a little bit later in the press conference, like you didn't think it's like a lack of effort. They just right now have an inability to get to the way they need to play, and I don't know if it's necessarily uncommon this early in the year, but I will say, like, with the amount of guys that were here last year and went through basically a half season of what this is right now, which is just struggling to get to the way you have to play in this system to win, I thought that they could snap out of this a little bit quicker. And I realize they do have, Shea's new and Stamkos is new and Marchessault. And right now, those guys, particularly Stamkos and Marchessault, it just looks a little off with them right now. And I kind of expected that coming into the year when you got, a new environment. And you're trying to figure out exactly what works. It's some of the other guys right now that I think I had higher expectations for. The numbers, the underlying numbers would tell you they've been okay. But I have not been impressed with Forsberg, O'Reilly, Nyquist so far. They broke them up at the end, the third period last night. And I understand that they were maybe the best line in the history of your team last year. And I'm not saying that you just go ahead and pull the plug automatically, but I do think like there's been a certain unwillingness to break them up because of how productive they've been. And at some point, I think you might have to look at doing that. Like there was a couple of shifts last night where it was Forsberg, O'Reilly, and Stamkos. And that I think it serves a couple things. Number one, Forsberg, O'Reilly, and Nyquist isn't doing much right now. And number two, you got to find a way to get Stamkos and Marchessault going. And right now they're not going.
Yeah, it's weird how that it seems to happen a lot, right? 1 year a line will be untouchable and so good, and then for whatever reason the next year, something's off with it, and you have an adjustment. So maybe that's just what it's going to end up being. It's still, after watching them play last year, it's like you figure that's something that you could count on this year.
Yeah.
But I hear what you're saying. I mean,
well, it's still early.
Yeah, yeah, and Brunette, tinkers. Yeah, he tinkers liberally, and then he can go back to something too. But
yeah,
I mean, this is a loss like last night. That's probably like you said, it's so early. I mean, I'm with you. It's just that you would expect it to be a little bit more pick it right up and go with so many returnees after all the journey they went through last year of learning how he wants them to play.
Well, and the thing is, like last night, I thought they looked good, and Brunette kind of agreed with it after the game. I thought, Jankowski, Novak, Evangelista was the one line they really had going last night. Like I thought they played pretty well, and Andrew Brunette kind of echoed that after the game. But it's, there's an interesting balance that he's got to strike right now because, we've seen him shuffle the lines up a lot, and that kind of always leads to the discussion of, all right, well, how long is too long to leave a line together, and how quickly is too quickly to just abandon all hope that that you can develop some chemistry that way. And it's kind of an interesting balance right now. Like last night Michael McCarron scores. It was a great play by Parsonen to get him the puck. That line was also getting caved in on the defensive side of things, which is why you saw Juuso Parsonen in the lineup last night in place of Philip Tomasino. He had the assist to get McCarron the puck on the first goal. He ended up with 5 minutes and 54 seconds of ice time, which in an NHL game, it's hard to do. Like, it's hard to have 5 minutes of ice time for somebody in the NHL.
If they're not hurt.
But, like, clearly, and I guess I'll leave open the possibility that maybe he did get banged up a little bit, but he was out there with, like, 41 seconds left in the game, which tells me he just got benched last night. So, I don't know. They've got the first two games they had Tomasino in there. Brunette clearly didn't like something he saw from him in the second game, so he finds a way onto the bench. Parsonen comes in, and then last night he plays 5 minutes 54 seconds. So early returns it's kind of the same old story with Parsonen and Tomasino, at least with the coaching staff.
Yeah, and as far as the changes, I think that. I mean, when you change as much as he does, at least there's no fun. Like, there shouldn't feel like, oh, now this is like some conclusive move, right?
Right.
I mean, he's just going to be tinkering around. But, yeah, those guys they're on the fringe for a reason. And, you've thought that Tomasino maybe has taken a step forward, but, it's still we're talking about a step to make a team and be still on the fringe of being in the lineup. I mean, that's, it's what he is.
At some point, the bottom line, like, he's generated a couple looks. I thought he looked good in the Dallas game. Detroit, I didn't notice him all that much. But at some point, like, you have to force yourself in, right? Like, you gotta be productive, and you got to find a way to put the puck in the net. Like, that's what they need him to do. That's what Parsonen should be more equipped to play better defense. That line just got caved in last night when they didn't score the goal, or when they weren't scoring the goals, which they did the first one in the game for the Predators. I mean, they were getting shelled the other way. And the odd man rushes, I mean, some of it was just puck decisions that they made. Like Chuck on the text line saying UC looked bad, got to play Vezina level behind this defense. I mean, like, anytime you get 7 goals scored against you, now one of them's an empty net, but 7 goals scored against you, it does not reflect well on the goaltender. And usually I'm of the opinion that there's way too much excuse making for goalies in this league in general that just gets made. Last night, I will say, like, there's most of those, I just don't really know what you wanted to do. Like, you can get 3-on-1s coming one way and 2-on-1s and just odd man rushes left and right, or you're giving the puck away right in front of the net. Like, sure, would you like to see him, make a superhuman save or two last night? Yes, but as somebody who thinks there's too much excuse making for goaltenders in this league, it's hard for me to put much of that on Saros last night.
Yeah. You got 3-on-1s, just tic-tac-toe tap-ins. Santa in Portland says, it's exhausting being a fan of Middle Tennessee. Between the Preds, Titans, and Vols, no one's living up to the hype or the potential reported before the respective season began. What about Vandy? What, Santa?
Yeah.
What about Diego Pavia? Diego Pavia will save the entire state of sports.
He might do that. Look, again, I said it yesterday. My opinion hasn't really changed. Like, I would not panic yet if you're the Predator. Now, I will say, like, it's not great that you're 0-3 and now you've got Edmonton coming in. I know Edmonton has struggled and they got on the board last night and finally won a game. Like, we've seen it. That matchup's not gone overly great for the Predators over the last few years. So you get to 0-4. Like, if you don't win tomorrow, then I think it starts to get in your head a little bit of, good Lord, are we ever going to win a game here? Like, you're 0-4, and I know you got 78 remaining after that, but they need to find a way to win here pretty soon.
Tomorrow, this would be a good time for like a uptick in intensity and attention to detail.
Yeah. Well, and I think you hit it there with the last phrase. Like, the attention to detail right now is not where it should be. Like, it's that part of it's just got to get better. And maybe some of that's just you're kind of easing your way into the season and it's just natural from a team, but there's parts of their game that are just sloppy right now that they got to get fixed. Stamkos had a couple good looks last night. He's just kind of a little bit off right now with some of his timing. Forsberg had a couple of plays where I don't know how he didn't score, and then had a couple of just boneheaded plays that you don't really see from him very much. So they just all feel like they're a little bit off right now. I still have confidence that, like, there's too much ability on this team for me to believe that they're not eventually going to turn into a good hockey team. But right now they're not, and they gotta get that part figured out. 615-737-1025, our phone number, 615-737-1025. We'll take more of your thoughts on the Preds, their loss to Seattle last night to drop to 0-3, plus some big moves made in the National Football League yesterday. We'll get into all that. Robby and Rexrode, 1025, 1063, The Game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Taking your thoughts on our phone and text lines, which as always are driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. We are live from our Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. We'll have the Choice is Yours with Joe Rexrode coming up at 6:30 here on the program. Joe, a busy day yesterday of player movement across the National Football League, and of course, as is often the case, Joe, the first move coming yesterday about, 9 minutes after we got off the
Was
air.
it that long? Yeah.
Yeah,
Like,
maybe.
oh, that would have been nice.
Like, wow, how about that? A little breaking news in the NFL right after Robby and Rexrode get off the air. Davante Adams, shocker, traded from the Raiders to the New York Jets for a conditional third-round pick. So the Jets fall to 2-4 on Monday Night Football, and then immediately the next morning make the trade for Davante Adams to come in to see if he can help salvage their season. So you got the Adams move to the Jets, and then later in the day, Amari Cooper traded from the Cleveland Browns to the Buffalo Bills. So yay, Titans. You get the Bills, which is already going to be a tough challenge anyway, and now they've added Amari Cooper to the mix coming up to see the Titans on Sunday. And there's some pick swaps involved there, 2025 sixth-round draft pick, and Cleveland got back a 2025 third-rounder and a 2026 seventh-rounder in return there. So a busy day. I said yesterday, NFL trade deadline's really not that active. It's not. Yesterday was, though. Davante Adams and Amari Cooper on the move. What'd you make of that?
Yeah. Well, the Adams thing was kind of matter of time, probably, right? So thanks a lot, Woody Johnson, for waiting until the show's over. Really appreciate that. It's good timing, I guess, for Aaron Rodgers. He's already resorted to calling out Mike Williams in his post-game pressers, and it's like, okay, you can go off the field now. I mean, look, I must say,
it's intriguing.
Davante Adams and Garrett Wilson together is the biggest question I have about it is the actual guy throwing the passes. I mean, and he did. Well, I didn't think he looked bad the other night, by the way. I thought he made some Aaron Rodgers level passes. It's not like he's totally cooked, but we'll see. They are cooked just by their existence. So I'm assuming they're going to ruin Davante Adams in some way. But kind of got to be interesting for you. You got your Rodgers Adams connection you loved for so many years, and now they're with the Jets.
And where's Cobb? Where's Jake Kumaro, his boy back in the day?
There you go.
Get a lot of guys, get the band back together.
I mean, if Davante Adams doesn't work out, then basically anybody who is his friend should never be allowed to play with him. Right?
Well, it just kind of further evidence that the Jets is a place where like all good football things go to die at some point as well.
Yeah. Now the Cooper thing, I love the idea for the Bills. They needed another receiver. I mean, I like Keon Coleman a lot, but like this takes some heat off him, and I think will actually give more opportunities. I've wondered a little bit if Cooper is, getting a little washed, but I mean, with that offense, with that team, with that quarterback, I would think that this would be a massive boost of energy for him to go there. So this could be really good for the Bills. I really like the move. It's because they're on the fringe of being like they can contend, but you watched them the other night. That was a game they easily could have lost to the Jets. They need a little bit more downfield. So I like that a lot. And I do wonder, we already know the Raiders are trash, although, yay, Brady owns part of you. Now Brady as an announcer is not allowed to talk to anybody, look at anybody, criticize anybody. Really working out great for all of us NFL fans who want to watch games and hear good commentary. Really appreciate that.
Hey, congratulations to him, though. Way to go, buddy.
Good for you. Yeah. But now get out of the broadcast booth. But
so some of the rules yesterday's like, well, he can't be in a production meeting. He can't really be in a visiting locker room anywhere. He can't do all these. There's like this long list of things he now can't do. It's like, oh, good. That'll work out great.
I mean, if you want, next time you watch a broadcast, listener, just pay attention to the conversations. I mean, they do a lot of work, and they prepare, and they have a lot of things that are all completely built on these meetings that they have with the coaches and coordinators and sometimes some players, 2 days before the game. He can't do those. He can't participate in those.
Yeah.
How stupid that is. I'd love to hear more stories about you and Gronk over and over again.
Tom, your thoughts on this game? I don't know who's playing. I don't know who anybody on the roster is.
But anyway, that's off on a tangent. It's ridiculous. But we know the Raiders are cooked. That's the point. The Browns, is this the side? Are they doing just full sell out? They're going to sell everybody and just make Deshaun go out there week after week.
That's what I don't understand about all this. It's like, well, if you're gonna punt on the season, which is what this is, trading Amari Cooper, that's fine. Like, I don't really begrudge you of doing that. But why do you continue to trot him out and play quarterback every week? I understand the contract, but at this point, the contract is what it is. Like, you've done it, and we've seen it now for 3 years. He sucks. Like, he's not getting any better. Like, he is bad. He has turned into a bad football player. So at this point, why are you just insisting upon throwing him out there every week? I don't, for the life of me, understand that.
Oh, maybe they. Well, this is. I mean, we haven't seen a game since this.
That's true.
I'm trying to think. So they've got. I know they have the Dorian Thompson. I always get his name wrong. The Notre Dame
Robinson.
kid.
Yeah.
Dorian Thompson Robinson. Yeah, and then
you got Jameis. Put Jameis
well,
out there.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing. I mean, so you're not going to do that. I mean, I guess basically, if you like the Notre Dame kid, and you think that there's some future there, maybe you go that route, right? But I mean, I have no idea. I mean, I know that supposedly, Watson and Cooper, weren't on the same page. I mean, obviously Watson and everybody are not on the same page, or they are on the same page of just
and the page
crappy
is just not
offense. Good. Yeah. But it's going to be very interesting now with that team. And maybe they're. I know. We made we'll talk about the Landry thing yesterday. The Myles Garrett.
A lot of reaction to that.
Yeah, all positive. I'm sure. Right? Everybody thought it was good. Good idea.
A lot of reaction to that yesterday. The line for the Titans Bills on Sunday has not changed, Joe. It's 8.5. It was 8.5 yesterday, and it's not changed with Amari Cooper coming in. I'm a little surprised by that.
Give it time. I mean, I don't know.
People realize who they're playing.
As the season goes on, or as the week goes on, I figure that line probably goes up a couple points anyway, doesn't it?
I would think so.
1.5.
But I mean, you talk about bad timing for the Titans. I assume. I mean, sometimes when these trades happen, it takes the receiver coming in maybe a couple weeks to really get used to what's going on out there. I would imagine, though, like if you're Sean McDermott and that coaching staff, you're coming up with, at the very least, like, here's my Amari Cooper package that we're going to install this week as he's learning the offense. Here's some plays we feel pretty good about that you can grab onto pretty quickly, and we'll throw you the ball. Like, it's not great timing for the Titans for this trade of a game that was already going to be difficult to win anyway, and now you toss Amari Cooper into the mix.
Yeah. Of course, the Steelers have to every week have to play Devontae Adams.
Apparently so.
Devontae Adams last week, and now Devontae Adams with actually at least a somewhat decent team around him and a guy who can throw the ball. So that's tough. But, just one more. I mean, I like the Titans' chances. Anyway, won't until they prove me wrong. But sure, throw another problem at them.
Yeah, I'm sure it's just great. I'm sure Brian Callahan really enjoyed seeing that news yesterday. Oh, good. Amari Cooper that we get to contend with.
Sounds fun.
Sounds like a lot of fun. The Braden Narveson experiment in Green Bay, by the way, also over yesterday.
They cut him?
Yeah.
I missed that.
They signed Brandon McManus, who got cut by Jacksonville with the alleged sexual assault stuff. Those charges got dismissed a few weeks ago. He worked out with the Packers yesterday, and they immediately signed him, and Narveson is now cut. So, hey, if you're the Titans, you want Narveson back on your practice squad, he's now available.
There you go. Yeah, at least
he's not been very good.
Of all the complaints, and there's a lot of fair complaints about the Titans.
They made the right decision.
At least that one, they did well.
They did very well with Nick Folk instead of Braden Narveson. 615-737-1025. Our phone number. The choice is yours. Joe Rexrode in the questions chair coming up next. Robby and Rexrode, 1025-1063, the game.
choices to make. Like right now. It's The Choice Is Yours, now on Robby and Rexrode.
It is time for The Choice Is Yours. You can check it out every Wednesday morning at 6:30. 2 sports questions, 2 non-sports questions. Unless sometimes we change it up, like I did last week, and asked 4 straight sports questions. Just kind of depends on whatever we want to do. And speaking of whatever we want to do, Joe Rexrode, today, that's your decision. The question share is yours.
Well, my choice is to do The Choice Is Yours in traditional format. So sports or non-sports?
Non-sports.
Here we go.
Non-sports. All right. Well, this is my only, Halloween-ish adjacent time. But next time I do this, we'll be past Halloween. So, what's the best horror movie of all time?
That's easy for me.
Okay, do it.
I'd say Alien. Growing up,
Ooh,
I
underrated.
had a very hard time getting through those movies, and even the new ones still creep me out. Not a huge fan, but that is a good one.
Alien and Aliens, which came out several years later in like '86, both I think great movies.
Yeah.
But yeah. Alien that's a. I don't even necessarily. I think of it as a sci-fi movie.
Yeah,
but that's fine. I mean, it's pretty horrific.
I mean, I have kind of 2 different answers. Like, I enjoy like the first 2 Halloweens the most with Michael Myers. Like, I'm the slasher stuff, whether it's Jason or Michael Myers, I like. So mostly anytime that's on, I'll stop and watch it at least for a little while. But the ones that like actually scare me, like the Insidious movies, are pretty freaky. Like, so I'll go Insidious.
Oh yeah, see, I've never seen any of those. I've heard they're those
a little bit much sometimes. It's like, oh, there's some stuff going on in this.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I don't really seek them out anymore. So
That's the thing. I
was gonna say like I'll check them out, but I probably won't check them out. Yeah, well, stuff like that you think of. I mean, I think The Exorcist is certainly, and Rosemary's Baby to me is still, if you know, like you're going back now to the '60s, but man, that is creepy. But I got to go with Halloween. I mean, we're talking about an independent film. Really, like launched Jamie Lee Curtis, John Carpenter, just the music alone.
Yeah.
And really, it's one thing about that movie, like there's actually not a lot of violence or gore in it. Like there are a few killings, but it's really more the suspense and the the dread of the whole thing. So I got to go Halloween. I think that's the GOAT. All right, sports. The one trade your team nearly pulled off, and you wish it did, but it didn't happen. Since we're trading people now,
You go ahead. Let me think about this.
Yeah, for me, once the USFL totally pooped on itself, and like, oh yeah, let's go to the fall, take on the NFL head to head. Yeah, that's what football fans want.
Great idea.
Yeah, the spring was working out pretty well. Well, Anthony Carter, the Michigan Panthers, the Detroit Lions, the Dolphins had his rights, and the Lions had him, and they blew it. They asked for more, and they blew it. And Russ Thomas, an all-time bad GM. That would have been, he ends up going to the Vikings and being really good there. I mean, he was a heck of, he wasn't like a great NFL player, but he was a really good NFL player. He had a good stretch. And so that one at that time for a team that had absolutely no receivers is still the one that I would have loved to have seen. He played at Michigan. Great for the Michigan Panthers. Won a championship for the Michigan Panthers.
Yes.
Should have been a Detroit Lion.
I will say Damian Lillard to the Heat, which
man.
I thought was a foregone conclusion at one point.
Sounded
Yeah,
so cool.
It's still like it hasn't worked out great for him since then. Like he's been dealing with some injuries and he's getting up there a little bit. But I still like he is exactly what that team was missing, and I still wonder how good they could have been had Damian Lillard actually been traded to the Miami Heat. So that one I thought was just done because he talked all offseason long about that's where he wanted to be. And then Pat Riley didn't make it happen. And now they are stuck in an aptitude. So there you go.
Thanks, Pat.
Appreciate it, Pat.
One that I forgot about that I just did some quick research on, and one I learned about recently too, was PK Subban was almost traded to Edmonton, and it was going to involve Leon Draisaitl. That was kind of something that was something that TSN was kind of throwing around at the time. I don't know how to say his last name. Maybe you can tell me, Robbie, but Ryan Rizhousing or something, or Rizhow. I don't know how to say his last name. Okay, I don't know how to say his last name at all. So there you go. But he was credited with that report back in 2016.
I was about to say that had to be
So-
pretty early in Dreisaitl's career.
Mhm.
Okay,
Yeah,
that makes more
pretty
sense.
early on. And I
So
didn't know
you're
that-
saying that when Montreal traded him here, they were going to go there.
yes, that was
instead.
beforehand. Yeah.
Okay. So which one of those is your team?
Well, I'm just more surprised that it didn't happen. That's all. No, I couldn't think of anything here in town, honestly.
All right. What's the worst horror movie of all time? And I think there are a lot more choices
There's
for
a lot
this.
of that. Yeah, you go ahead. There's a few that I'm deciding between.
So I'm not even sure which number this was, but it was like 1988 because I went to the theater for it. Yeah, like in high school, and whatever Friday the 13th it was like those movies, early on, Jason and the Mask and everything, but like they got real bad real fast, and then it got like comically bad, almost to the point where it was like almost like making fun of themselves. So I guess I can kind of appreciate that, but really, really bad movies. So like once you got into this was probably Friday the 13th part like 7 or 8, just atrocious. Like even the gore was like, dude, like, is that ketchup? Like, what are we doing here?
Yeah.
So I'll pick that one, but any of the latter day Friday the 13th are just atrocious.
There's a couple that come to mind. Freddy versus Jason. Which
See, I
came
never
back-
saw that, but
it's pretty
gotta be bad.
Like, yeah, I remember seeing that. I think it came out in like 2004 or something. So I was in like middle school and I saw it and I was like, well, that was one of the dumbest things I think I've ever watched. So that was up there. There was a movie that I saw late in like high school called Drag Me to Hell, where basically just like the center of the earth opens up and people just get drugged down to hell. It was awful.
Yeah.
It was a terrible movie.
There's a
Drag
bunch-
Me to Hell.
Drag Me to Hell. Yeah. There's a bunch of Terrifier, Sinister, Slither, like all these, like a lot of people on the text line like movies I've never even heard of. I guess I mostly stay away from horror movies.
Yeah. It's not my favorite genre, but there are some bad ones out there.
Yeah, Halloween 3. See, I never saw Season of the Witch, but I've heard, Jason Takes Man. Was that the one? Was Jason Takes
Manhattan? Yeah. I didn't see that one. I've heard.
That might have
bad
been
things.
the one. I just really bad. Okay, sports.
Well, Keezer,
wait.
do you have
Ke-
a worse
Ke- oh,
horror
Keezer.
movie?
He can go. I don't know.
No, man, you have to give an answer. No.
Yeah, but I don't really. Okay, I was trying to find something, but I genuinely just don't watch them now. I will say I didn't watch this, but I've not heard great things about it. Apparently, there was a Winnie the Pooh
horror movie?
movie
Wow.
that was it's Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey. So if you're on the text
Good
line
gracious.
and you want to let
I
us
really
know
want that
if
to be
you've
true.
seen
I
it,
kind of want to see that.
I want it to be true.
I don't know. It's an
That's
hour
like when
and a half.
all these people took like their kids to see. Remember the movie Ted with the teddy bear with Mark Wahlberg,
Yes.
and they're like, "Yeah, let's get about a movie about a teddy bear." And I'm
Oh,
like, well,
yeah.
not really. It's
Well-
also rated R, so you might want to take a look at that. Before
And-
you take your 7-year-old.
And very much earns the R rating.
yeah, it does.
Yeah, that's funny. Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey.
That can't be.
What
real.
about
I have to watch
Stilly
that.
the Pooh, Blood and Cat Money?
Ooh,
Let's alter it. Wow, I really hope that exists. Okay, the trade your team did pull off and you wish it didn't pull off.
Ooh.
The hated trade.
You go
Now,
ahead.
a lot of Preds fans would sit here and I would argue with them on the Shea Weber PK one. Yeah, for me,
Kyle Turris.
yeah. Well, there's that too. That Sam Girard and what all was involved
a
in
couple
that?
picks, I think.
Yeah, a couple picks. Yeah. My 2017, the Tigers were starting to, go down and they were going to be bad, but still Justin Verlander for a bag of balls, Jake Rogers, Franklin Perez, like it's just awful. Like, got nothing in return, watched him go win championships. And it's just like, he should have been there the whole time. Like you keep your best players and you build around them. I mean, look, unless you bring in a haul that actually works, it was an atrocious trade.
I'm trying to think. Keezer, do you have one?
Bad trade.
Bad trade.
I think one that's maybe underrated for some Nashville Predators fans was when Kevin Fiala got traded away.
Yes.
I think that was one that people were not very happy with from the outset of that being completed.
Was that just straight up with Granlund?
I think
Yeah,
it was.
I think
Straight
so.
up,
I
right?
think it was
Yeah.
straight up.
I think it
Fiala for
was.
Granlund.
Well,
Yeah.
the idea at the time was like, I think people, when it first happened, were happy. We're like,
Yeah.
oh, yeah, well, Fiala might be good one day, but Granlund we know is good now. And mixed bag
Yeah.
with old Kyle Granlund.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
He was okay at times. At times, not very good.
and then Fiala, also kind of a mixed bag since then, right? I mean, that's
Yeah.
the thing.
I mean, can I say AJ Brown?
Yeah. I mean, is that the
Yeah.
worst trade? Is that the worst trade in Nashville sports
I
history?
mean, I think
it
it's
has
got to
to
be.
right?
Yeah. Like,
Yeah.
the Predators have had some doozies of trade. I don't know if they've had one quite like AJ Brown. That one's tough to top.
I mean, yeah.
I think AJ Brown has to be my answer.
Like, think of, I mean, you can look at different points. You can look at like John Robinson's firing too, if you want, but really, like,
That's when it
you
started.
you can look at the 3 picks
Yeah.
and losing the Bengals, but like that trade really is where it just went. What are you doing? And all this good stuff is just about to go. Poof.
And that one was bad. Like, the Preds and tourists, that's a bad one because they're still paying on it.
Yeah.
But at least like it was like, okay, well, Tourist has been a good player, and then he just fell off a cliff. The AJ one's like, yeah, we know how good AJ Brown is, and you just willingly gave him up.
Yeah. This franchise that searched forever
for
a great receiver has one and does that.
Yeah, I think AJ's got to be the answer.
That's a good answer.
615-737-1025, our phone number, 615-737-1025. We'll get back into the Tennessee Titans coming up next. And then a player that I had previously given up on that I think might actually somewhat be turning into a good player. We'll get into that coming up next. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3, The Game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Check out Nashville's best deal this week. It's Staley's Chicago Italian Dining right here in Nashville, winner of numerous Best of awards. One of the best kept secrets in Nashville, Staley's Chicago Italian Dining brings amazing Italian food to the South, including original Italian beef sandwiches, Vienna Chicago-style hot dogs, and the best gyros south of Chicago. Head to theGameNashville.com/deals to get half off a $20 gift card while supplies last. A lot of movie reviews on the text line right now of Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey. Apparently 2 of these movies. Might need to check it out. I'm really fascinated by this. Like, is the original like Winnie the Pooh voice involved in this?
Right. Like, how have I never seen? I mean, you would think that something like this would go nuts, at least on social media, right?
Yeah, like Sharknado.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Great example. Never heard of this. It looks amazing. How did the creator of Winnie the Pooh, like, how does this get licensed? You know what I mean? Like, how is
he the one that did it?
Just decided to, you know what?
Like,
we're gonna pivot.
We're gonna change this thing
Yeah.
up a little bit.
Kids,
we're shield your
pivoting.
eyes.
Christopher Robin, I'm cutting your throat, bro. Okay.
Eeyore,
Yeah.
you better watch your back.
Eeyore's taking one in the back, okay?
Two of them, though, apparently.
Yeah.
Before Halloween is over, I need to have watched this movie.
Blood and Honey.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
All right. Good to know.
Yeah.
Our text line could be very educational. And so can Nick Keyser.
And yeah, Keyser introduced us to this joy. So thank you, Keyser.
Keyser, are you going to watch this?
No.
Oh, okay.
I just remember seeing the trailer for it, and it really just
See, I don't.
Yeah, I
creeped
don't
me
either.
out.
Yeah.
I didn't like it that much, and then I didn't see great reviews on it doing my quick research.
Okay.
But maybe it's worth it.
Good to know.
Let us know.
All righty. Joe, there's a player that I think I and most Titans fans had given up on heading into this season that I'm not saying is about to book his tickets to, Hawaii or Orlando or wherever the Pro Bowl is nowadays for the flag football game. But, I mean, there are some clips that you can find pretty much on a weekly basis at this point, Joe, particularly in the running game. This player making some pretty good blocks that are springing Tony Pollard and or Tajay Spears. Dylan Radins has been, I think, fine at the right guard spot. Now, I don't know that anybody's ever going to confuse Dylan Radins for like some all-pro right guard or anything like that. But like, there's a couple of blocks on Sunday that he had that are kind of making the rounds on Titans Twitter yesterday. I saw Justin Mello tweet a couple of them out. Like, Dylan Radins getting after people in the running game. Like, it's pretty impressive to watch.
He likes, this a lot of pulling, pin and pull stuff. Dylan Radin smashing people in the gap there. No, he looks physical. He's not bad.
Yeah. Which I did not have on the bingo card this year, just to be totally frank with you.
That's the thing. It's like one of those things, if you isolate this and say, if I told you Dylan Radins, the clips of him at this point in the season would be like, wow, look at this guy smashing people.
Yeah.
And opening up big running seams. What does that mean for the Tennessee Titans? Doesn't mean much, but I think he is an example. First of all, so Callahan comes in because I know right now, like, everything's bad. Everybody sucks. There's nothing good. None of them actually know anything. I get it. Hey, all frustration is totally understandable, but there's a guy who they said, nope, you're a guard. Work on being a guard. That's what you're going to be. And they kind of just went through it. Now, granted, he wasn't going to even at first. He wasn't supposed to be the starter. Sadiq Charles was the guy who started right guard, but seems like it was a pretty good evaluation of him. It seems like maybe he's benefiting from Bill Callahan.
Yeah, it seems like he is. Again, is Dylan Radins the long-term answer at right guard? I have no idea, but he's playing well enough, I think, that it kind of catches your attention on a weekly basis. Like, wow, okay. Of all the problems on the offensive line that we've seen, Dylan Radins has not really been one of them, like, at least on a consistent basis to this point.
And the interesting thing is, if you go across the line now Kuharski has been, again, I think last game, I haven't seen his PFF grade. Have we seen the PFF grades? Where's Glennon?
I've not seen them.
Where's Glennon when you need Glennon? But I thought that he played pretty well. We've talked about Latham. I don't know that like Cushenberry has lit the world on fire, but I mean, he's a good player. Really, it does come down to it's like right tackle.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I mean, I guess they'll probably roll with Watson still moving forward, but it's like really the offensive line probably going to keep getting better. I understand that the Colts were not the most stout opponent, that it's probably the weakest, especially with injuries, front that they face, but I feel like they are getting better.
Yep, I do too. An interesting test for them coming up the next couple of weeks here. Now, obviously, with Aiden Hutchinson out against Detroit, that makes that one a little bit more manageable than it otherwise would have been.
Maybe they'll be blocking Harold Landry.
Well, maybe so. We'll get back into that coming up here in just a few minutes. Let's go to our 1025 The Game phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Welcome in Chad. Chad, good morning. Thanks for calling in.
Hey, thanks for having me. So, big Vikings fan. They're looking at could be a potential Super Bowl run. They'll match up, of course, this week with the Lions. We'll see what they look like head to head. If you're the Titans, the Vikings call, we've already seen 2 trades yesterday, and they decide they want to go all in and shore up their defensive line. And they ask about Jeffrey Simmons. Titans in a real rebuild mode. Vikings willing to offer, they don't have a lot of picks, but they offer a first-round pick, maybe a conditional pick down the road. Your thoughts on that?
Yep. Thanks for the call, Chad. Oh, well, my original thought on that, Joe, is I don't know that there's really anybody on the roster right now that I wouldn't at least seriously consider it via trade. Now, first off, do you think somebody's offering a first-round pick for Jeffrey Simmons at this point based on the contract?
I do not.
So I don't know how realistic the first-round pick would be. If they did offer a first-round pick, then yeah, I'd probably consider that if I was the Titans. I don't know that that's what they would get for Jeffrey Simmons. And if it's not a first-round pick, then what is it? Like if it's a third-rounder, I don't know that I got a whole lot of interest in that if I'm the Titans. So I think it's, I would listen on everybody, but there are, a few players that they have where it would have to be a pretty specific set of criteria for me to even consider pulling the trade off.
Yeah. And again, it's just we talked about this yesterday. I know we're going to get more into it. And I think there's a bigger conversation too about this front office deciding to really sell. Like, what does that mean?
Right.
Like I've gone back and forth on the text line, so I'll bring this with Chuck. But first of all, real quick, apparently Winnie the Pooh went public domain. That's why and apparently there's like Pinocchio ones coming of this. So
this is
public domain, so
now.
you can just do whatever, I guess, apparently. So,
interesting.
Yeah. Chuck says, is the new stadium and trying to market seats and suites the reason the Titans aren't just completely blowing it up and starting from scratch? I wouldn't mind seeing them trade off players for future draft picks. Okay. And, normally a new GM and new coach means rebuild, not reload. And again, like we talked about this in the offseason when some people in the NFL were like, gosh, the Titans are spending money on players. And I guess right now you could, if you said that in the offseason, you could say, see, I told you so, but I'm still going to argue with it and say, like, in this league, what are you trying to, you want to get rid of all of your good football players and just have picks? Like, you can't do that for long,
No.
And you have to have good football players. And that's why I brought up the Landry thing, but I also said I doubt it would happen because, I mean, what are you building on?
Well, I agree with you. You have to have good football players. I think you also have to have a willingness to see when your roster just isn't good enough and it's not up to snuff. And a way to turn that over relatively quickly is to stockpile picks, right? And right now, like the Titans just don't have enough. I mean, I heard Willie and D-Mace and Adam talking about this yesterday. Like, you gave up the 3rd round pick to go get L'Jarius Sneed, and you get L'Jarius Sneed in, and you were the team that was willing to go do that. But in order to turn this thing around, like they need more young talent than they have, a lot more young talent than they have. And the only way to really get that is to stockpile picks. So I think there's a balance there of, yes, you need to have good football players. You also need to get as many picks as you can if you're the Titans.
Well, you need to draft well. I mean, yeah, I mean, sure, more picks. I mean, you have a higher, you have some margin for error. But I mean, you need to draft well. I mean, like if you go through the end of the Robinson era, it's not like I know they had the one draft. I think it was like 2018 where they only had like 4 picks, but for the most part, they had their normal allotment of picks. They just made bad picks, right? So if they made better picks, they would have those young players. I mean, that's what it is. You have to draft well. If you don't draft well, you're screwed. Get more picks. That's fine. But are you do you not need to keep some good players too? Like I told Chuck, they're trying to find a quarterback. They're failing at that, so now everything looks worse.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not full Adam in Portland. Like everything else is great except for Will Levis, but I mean that's what it is. Chuck says by the time they find it, all these good players will help move on to other teams, other contracts.
Well, maybe
if the season's going to tank, why not completely tank? Well, they might sell off. They might. But he said the Texans looked like they tanked and rebuilt to a good team. The Texans were stockpiling some good players during that time too. They were drafting some good players and had a pretty good offensive line in place. They paid some guys. They paid some offensive linemen. And then a quarterback works out, and look at how good it all looks, right?
Well, and by the way, like right now, I'm not sure that they have to tank to end up with a pretty good draft pick. Like they're doing a pretty good job of that by themselves right now, trying not to tank.
Right. So you could get a high pick and still have some good football players. Right. And you can't, it's like this whole, and I think sometimes we've talked about this a million times, but it's like the NHL and the NFL model and the way you go about things are so different.
Yeah.
In the NFL, I mean, you should never be far from being competitive.
No.
The league is built for you to be competitive.
Well, and sometimes that is as simple as you're a pretty bad team, and then you find the right quarterback in the draft, and that immediately vaults you up. Like that, we've seen that happen time and time again.
I mean, the Commanders have been trash. The Commanders are this year's Texans, right? Yeah. They've been trash. They bring in a rookie dynamite quarterback. It's like, Bears,
yeah,
be all right.
Yeah, 615-737-1025, our phone number. We'll continue this discussion coming up next. We'll tie it into Joe Rexrode's Harold Landry trade proposal that he threw out there yesterday that continues to get a lot of reaction. All that coming up. Robby and Rexrode, 1025-1063, The Game. Hour number 2, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Robbie Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Nick Keyser, intern Robert here with you on this Wednesday morning. We will be joined by Paul Kuharski from paulkuharski.com. You never know when PK will show up. Could be 7:30. Could be 7:45 for the rant. Could be 8 o'clock. You never know when it's going to be. But it'll be at some point coming up here in the next hour or so.
I feel like he's kind of slacking a little bit. We're going to get a text in about 20 minutes. Oh, hey, boys. I'll be by 8:30. Prove me wrong, PK. Prove me wrong.
Maybe so. I have to wait and see how it goes.
Titans are sapping his will to go on.
I think that may be a pretty popular feeling around here.
Yeah.
It's like, oh. Had somebody on the text line ask us, like, what's more suspenseful? Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey, or waiting for that next Will Levis interception?
Oh, boy. You know what? Like
Will Levis catches some strays.
What everyone needs is for like Will Levis to go like 20 for 25 for 310 and 3 touchdowns at Buffalo. You know, just like change, just
for once,
completely. Yeah, even if it's just a one-time thing, just do that. Do something different.
Change up the talking point just a little bit.
Yeah,
because quite frankly, too much more of this. I don't know what else to talk about.
It's
like, all right,
yeah.
What are we doing?
Now the Preds are really good, at least.
Yeah, it's going well.
Yeah.
Well for them so far. A lot of talk yesterday about your trade proposal that you threw out there. For those who may have missed it, the proposal that you kind of floated out there, Harold Landry to the Detroit Lions, obviously in the aftermath of them losing Aiden Hutchinson. That's a huge loss for them. They have legitimate Super Bowl aspirations this year. So your proposal is Harold Landry to the Detroit Lions. You would get back a pick for that. Now, you did throw out a first-round pick that maybe you could get back. We'll see.
Have to be. Oh,
we'll
it has to
be.
be.
What that looks like.
It's a low first-round pick, but it has to be a first-round pick.
So
yeah, that's a desperate team.
A first-round pick coming back the other way. And also, in addition to that, a quarterback swap, basically, with Mason Rudolph going to Detroit and Hendon Hooker coming back this way. There's a lot of different reaction to that yesterday on our radio station and throughout the text line and social media and all those things. I would say the majority are on board with you and think that you should be general manager and that you are now a genius and maybe always have been a genius.
Well, that's about right.
D-Mace did have a
I've
lot of
always
hesitation in terms of the trading Harold Landry part of this. And it goes back to basically what you were talking about in the last segment of, all right, if you trade Harold Landry, like who do you have on your defense? Who's getting after the quarterback? You already have to find one edge rusher. Now you got to find two if you do that. And is that worth what you would be getting back in terms of a first-round pick? And, you know, he brought up like the AJ example, right? Like you traded away AJ Brown. We all know how bad of a move that was. But the thinking, at least at the time, from John Robinson was, well, I don't have to pay him that much money. We'll go get the first-round pick in Treylon Burks, and he can give us the production that AJ Brown got. Now, it's laughable to look back on now, but we have seen that happen in the league before where teams have done that, and it's worked out. So I would say most everybody that I saw anyway on board with your plan. D-Mace, not so much with the Harold Landry trade idea.
Well, no, I mean, I'm on board with that hesitation. I mean, I proposed it, but first of all, like I said yesterday, I mean, I have my doubts that this front office would be into that at all. You know, I have doubts that Brian Callahan, Denard Wilson, those guys would be into it because not only is Harold Landry a really good and productive player, but I do think that he's a culture setter. And right now, this is when a locker room really needs good culture, as we like to say, because, you know, when that's just like Vrabe said before he left, you know, this is when you really find out about your culture. And it's like the front office, they don't have a infinite amount of time to prove that they have to win football games at some point. So if you're getting picks, you know, who are you winning with on the field? That's the whole thing. It's like, I mean, you have to have players. Yes, like Andrew says, to rebuild, you need high draft picks. Honestly, we don't have good enough players to trade for first or second round picks. Hard to rebuild with fourth and fifth rounders. Well, at Landry, to me, again, especially when the team on the other side is as close as they are, but they now have a glaring hole. That's where I think you can juice up the price.
Yep.
So that's why I thought about this, because it's like this is one where you could actually really fleece someone because they're that. And I think the Lions are going to be looking all over the league, but I don't think Max Crosby's going anywhere. Mark Davis said that yesterday. As hard as it is to look at that dude's haircut when he's talking, I believe what he said.
You run it by Brady?
Well, that's a good question. I mean, that's right. You got to ask Brady, I guess. But you know, they're going to be all over the league looking, and I just don't know if they're going to find what they're looking for, and this could be the answer. And so then you could have a huge price. But like, so let's go back to the Titans when they rebuilt last time.
Yep.
Okay, they were the worst team in the NFL, 5-27, right?
Yep.
So what happened to turn them into? I mean, they snapped their fingers and they were good. Why? What did they have? You know, they had a pre-existing left tackle who found his game. They drafted a right tackle high. They went and signed a center. So all of a sudden they had a competent offensive line.
Yep.
They went and got 2 good running backs, and their quarterback was pretty good. Now, they had so, but they, you also on the other side of the ball, you had, and yes, you bring in Byard, so that's a big.
Yep.
He didn't even start the first half of the 2016 season, so you had guys like Arakpo.
Jarrell Casey.
You had guys like Jarrell Casey, who was a heck of a player. I mean, really, like on paper, they weren't great. They weren't great at corner.
No.
They had Avery Williamson in it.
Yeah.
They had some good players, but I mean, it doesn't take. The point is, it is not hard to go. It shouldn't be hard to go from bad, which is what they are now, to like 9-8,
Yeah.
10-7. But to be better than that, you have to have the right. You have to have the quarterback.
Yeah. Well, that's what it comes down to. And the Landry part of this, like we got a text on the text line from, I think it was Andrew. It says, to rebuild, you need high draft picks. And honestly, we don't have enough good players to trade for first or second round picks. It's hard to rebuild with 4th and 5th rounders. And I do think when it gets to the Hopkins discussion, which I think is more likely for sure than like a Landry getting traded. Like, what are you getting back for DeAndre Hopkins? Like, we just saw 2 receivers get traded yesterday. Devontae Adams got traded for a conditional 3rd, and the Cooper trade, I think, also involved a 3rd, but it was kind of like a pick swap later in the draft. Like that tells me that if you traded at this point DeAndre Hopkins, what are you getting back? A 4th, maybe somewhere around there.
Yeah.
So you're not getting it that way. Like Landry, number 1, plays a position, and number 2 is a good enough player where he's one of the few guys you have where maybe you could get back a premium pick at that point. Right. Now, is that totally worth it? Like, if you think you're, especially if you're in this front office, I think you have to operate this way. Like, if you're in the front office, you better be operating under the assumption that the turnaround is coming, and it's coming in the not too distant future. Otherwise, you're not going to be here for it. So, like, I would assume that you were hoping that Harold Landry is a part of that solution as you move forward here.
Right, exactly. I think the hesitation of all the different parties, I mean, that to me is where the most likely hesitation comes in. It's like, okay, great, you can get a 1st-round pick, but like this guy's good now, so yes, you could take that 1st-round pick, and of course, as someone else Cam pointed out, you get another one, and then you have wherever you're going to pick with your pick, which is probably going to be pretty high.
Probably so.
You could probably leverage that to I don't even know if this draft's going to be like that. Is there going to be an obvious number 1 pick at QB that you would move up? But you could either leverage that to go get the best QB, or you could pick your QB and then, pick another good player, pick the edge to replace Landry, like you said. But, as a rookie, you could have a heck of a player and all of a sudden at a way cheaper price, but also, you have a known commodity in Landry.
Problem with all this also is like, the quarterback is the most important thing to find, but you do still need another edge rusher. You definitely need another wide receiver. We've talked about that. Like, they don't have a young wide receiver right now. They don't have one. And they're going to have to find one at some point. I mean, Burks is not it, obviously. So they're going to have to find one of those at some point. So you got that you need. You got the edge rusher that you need. You got the quarterback that you need. And, oh, by the way, they need a right tackle as well. So there's still a lot that this team has to go find if they're going to get back to that point.
Right. And so they tried to address a lot of things in this offseason. I don't have a problem at all with spending money this offseason. They got some good football players. It just hasn't materialized. Although they do have the number 1 defense, by the way.
They do.
You want to trade away a key piece of the number 1 defense in the NFL?
That's what the numbers say. 615-737-1025. Our phone number. We'll have more on this coming up next. Paul Kuharski joining us later in the program. All that coming up. Robby and Rexrode, 1025, 1063, The Game. Tune in to 102.5, 106.3 The Game this Saturday for Vanderbilt football. Commodores taking on Ball State with pregame beginning at 4:30 on 94.9 The Fan. Moving to 102.5 The Game following the Preds game. Vanderbilt football kicks off at 6 o'clock. Coverage also available on the 102.5 The Game app and at thegamenashville.com. Also, make sure you check out tonight's Smashville live show, Brewhouse South in Cool Springs at 6 o'clock. Player guests will be Philip Tomasino and Yuso Parsonen. That's tonight at Brewhouse South in Cool Springs and on your home of the Nashville Predators, 102.5 The Game. Taking your thoughts on the Titans, 615-737-1025. Chuck says, you just killed me with 9-8 or 10-7. That still translates to being bounced in round one and drafting in the middle of the first round. Maybe. I mean, we've seen teams make the playoffs as one of the last seeds and go on some pretty good runs in the playoffs. The point is, in this league, you can see example after example. It ain't that hard to go from being pretty bad to being decent in the NFL. Now, I do think it's hard once you get to like that 8, 9, 10 win mark. Going from that and being elite is a really difficult thing to do. But I mean, you brought up the example from the Titans. I mean, they were terrible, and then they went from being awful to 9-7 pretty quickly after that.
Right. And then the year after that, they won a playoff game.
Right.
So, remember, there's the fan perspective of lots of fair criticisms, like just having to watch 17 points every week from your team and things like that. And like Chuck's, blow it up. Why aren't we blowing it up? And again, there are people who work for Amy Adams Strunk who have to know that that's not a lifetime appointment, and yeah. So, to me, you can't just work on the timeline of blow it up. You have to have a strategy to be competitive pretty soon here. So, and again, that goes against this idea, which, by the way, Stilly is now attacking me. And I understand. I mean, I know sometimes on this station and elsewhere, like the first round pick gets thrown around. It's like, you're not getting a first round pick. So he's just clowning me on the idea that they could get a first. My point to him and what I said yesterday and today is it's about the desperation of the team on the other end. It would, first of all, it would require nothing else good materializing for them, right?
Correct.
The Detroit Lions have no edge presence at all. Aiden Hutchinson was their best player. And so, you're not going to replace that with Harold Landry, probably, unless they're going to get Myles Garrett. You're not going to replace what you lost in him. Anyway, he was the best edge rusher in the league this year. He had like 7.5 sacks and led the league in pressures by like 20.
By the way, that's who I would be targeting if I was Detroit first.
Sure, worth a shot.
Yeah,
I mean, shoot your shot. But so you're talking about the scenario in which that I do believe that would be possible is you're striking out elsewhere.
Yeah,
because I don't think Cleveland will trade him. I could be wrong. It doesn't sound like the Raiders are going to trade Max Crosby. You're striking out elsewhere, and again, if you don't have a pretty significant replacement for him, you have a Super Bowl offense, and you're not going to be good enough. You're not going to do it. It's not going to happen for you. You have to jump now and do everything you can to try to make this happen. It's all about the other team and their desperation. And again, if you also do the Lions look at Harold Landry and say, yeah, you know what, the next few years now he and Hutchinson together can be that could be a heck of a starting point for this defense. I understand for the most part, usually players like that, his point was Devontae Adams just went for a third and you're going to say Landry for a first. I understand what you're saying. What I'm talking about, though, is desperation of a contender. The Jets, there's a lot going on. Like Adams wanted the hell out of there, right?
Right.
Think about leverage and the difference in the situations. There's a big difference.
There's a big difference in the situation for sure. Now, I have no idea. Like this desperation from the Detroit Lions, like if it gets to that point, does that equate to first round pick for Harold Landry? I don't know. We'll see.
If I'm the Titans, it has to be something.
Got to be like that, right? Like you're not just doing it for the sake of doing it. If you're the Titans,
I mean, maybe you could live with a second, and like a second and a fourth,
right?
And again, I mean, my sneaky awesome part of the deal is my little QB swap, but
yeah, exactly.
Make the Vols fans happy.
Hendon Hooker just getting in here and lighting it up. Quarterback for the Titans the next 10 years.
Hendon Hooker at some point is going to play quarterback in the NFL, and I think he's going to play it well.
Raymond on the text line. If you don't blow it up, are you competitive now? Well, no, not at the moment. You're not. I mean, that to me, that part of it comes down to the quarterback. Like if you don't want to blow it up, if you're the front office, I understand that. Like you went out and you spent a ton of money, and from the front office standpoint, like if you're Carthon and Brinker, you know that if the season continues to go this way, you got to turn things around pretty quickly, or you're just not going to be here. So then it comes down to the quarterback. Like, what's your solution at quarterback after that? And ultimately, for the Titans as a whole, that's what it's going to come down to is like, what is your solution at quarterback? I am interested to see like what the strategy ends up being there. If it continues to go this way with Levis and we get to the end of this thing and it's just clear that it's not going to work with him, is that a draft thing for them in the offseason? Or do they look around and seriously say, all right, let's go find a veteran quarterback that can do some winning right now, and then maybe we can preserve ourselves a little bit and eventually get the quarterback of the future.
Yeah, and look, if you're a fan, listen to that. It's like, well, I don't want to just go back to 9-8. I mean, it gets into some of the Preds discussion over the years, right? It's like, great, okay, so you keep your job and longer, but like, how does that actually fix the problem?
Right.
But the thing is, I think Tampa Bay fans are pretty happy with what's going on at quarterback for them. All of a sudden, who was excited down there? Like, oh, going from Brady to Baker Mayfield, yay!
Yeah,
The Vikings. Maybe JJ McCarthy ends up being a good quarterback. Right now, are Vikings fans happy with Sam Darnold?
I'd say so.
I mean, he's a freaking MVP candidate. So that's what you have to hit with something like that if that's the way you're going to go.
Dustin from Hopkinsville says, you talk about, the Titans never blowing it up. Says the teams that go from decent to great, what's the recipe? How did the Chiefs get Mahomes? How'd Baltimore get Lamar? Buffalo get Allen? I feel we go for useless wins and never get a high enough draft pick. Now, on the high enough draft pick part,
they weren't high.
Like, I think Allen was 7th overall.
That was a bad team that, yes.
Mahomes was 10th,
yes.
I think.
And Lamar Jackson
was
first
32nd.
Round. Right. I mean, basically, they just made basically, they got Lamar Jackson where you got Will Levis. They hit a home run, and right now you're striking out a bunt.
Well, and they also, the Chiefs got Patrick Mahomes basically where you got Peter Skronsky. Like, it's basically how it worked out. It just happened to be the way it went in the draft that year.
Like that's when you put it like that.
That's kind of what happened.
Yeah, but I mean, like, so you have a generational. Patrick Mahomes is going to be the greatest quarterback of all time when he retires. Lamar Jackson is a 2-time MVP, and he may not be done winning those. I mean, we'll see if he wins a Super Bowl, but like those are incredible picks, right? Like you can't just. Of course, you want to do that at some point, but so there's not like the Bills formula was more traditional of you sucked and you stockpiled some good players and you made some good draft picks and you found your QB high in the draft.
Yeah. We'll see if the Titans can do that or if they go out and sign Ryan Tannehill again this offseason. 615-737-1025, our phone number. 615-737-1025. More on the Titans coming up next. We'll have the Rex Rant at 7:45. All that ahead. Robby and Rexrode, 1025, 1063, the game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode, broadcasting live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. Robbie Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Nick Keyser. Paul Kuharski from paulkuharski.com is with us here on the program. PK, how we doing?
Good morning. May I have an opening statement, please?
You may. Go ahead.
There was some granted comedic talk of my arrival time, with Joe in particular bashing me. I want it to be made clear to the listening audience that I am a paid contributor to the show from 8 to 9.
That is correct.
And mockery of my early arrival time will result in less charity for this show. We're friends. We have a good time. But if you'd like me to be here less, Joe, you can continue to talk about me not showing up at 7:30 every time. And you can ensure that I don't show up at 7:30 every time. And then people could listen to you instruct high school football fans on their treating referees nicely, pretend that that's a rant when they were given a clinic on a rant last week.
They were.
And and you could take the consequences of that, or you could be grateful that I show up early here, charitably, one would say. And
see if you can say that word correctly.
I did, charitably.
Charitably? Okay.
Yeah,
I
charitably.
think you got it.
Look like how you're looking to punch holes. You're being defeated here. You should have your tail between your legs and be offering an apology. And so either just like silently slink away, or go ahead. I give you time now to apologize.
So I'm apologizing for what?
For insulting me for having the
For not
gall
showing
to
up.
occasionally not show up for my
Early.
free half an hour.
Well, but the thing I said earlier was you're going to show up at 8:30, which would mean that is actually late.
A
How
violation.
often have I been late for my 8 o'clock hour?
0 times, I believe.
0 times, I believe.
Yeah.
And
Congratulations.
here I am, even though it's my son's 15th birthday, and we had a little birthday festivity this morning.
all right.
Yet I was here halfway into that last segment when I could have come in and told you that Harold Landry being worth a first is a pipe dream,
There we go.
that you're overly addicted to Hendon Hooker because you followed him with the Vols and somehow became a
Yes.
cheerleader rather than a reporter.
Yes, exactly.
And I mean, it's a nice discussion thing, but Harold Landry,
GBO, baby.
them overvaluing Harold Landry would make him a 2, not a 1.
Yeah, it's probably. I mean, you may be right about that. Again, Stilly keeps you and Stilly, same team. Stilly keep Legarius Dave right there. Again, let's talk about the situation. This only even becomes any conversation if the Lions are striking out elsewhere. Like Stilly mentions Reddick, right? You got Crosby, you got Garrett. But I'm telling you, the Lions are like they could win it, but they just lost their best player by far. Like this is a desperate situation of like,
and Landry's not
that's
the
where-
best option
that's
for them
where-
because they need a real go-getter, and Landry, comes up a little bit short on that meter in terms of, anybody compared to Hutchinson doesn't cut it, but Crosby is certainly closer. That sounds like he's not
yeah.
going to happen, though. I'd keep knocking on that door
So-
if I was Detroit.
So, again, this has to be like, oh, there's no other avenue. Okay, let's talk crazy price. But your Hendon Hooker thing is just ridiculous. This has nothing to do with being a fan of. I thought Hendon Hooker was a better.
You don't
prospect.
love Hendon Hooker more than most people love Hendon Hooker? I mean, I think that's on the record for,
Robbie, you
for
tell
a
me.
year and a half.
Robbie, you tell me.
What do you mean by, like, in terms of the player he is or the person he is?
No,
Oh, the player he
player?
is.
Yeah, I mean,
You think he's going to be? It sounds like you think he's going to be an outstanding NFL
I mean,
player.
I guess we can go. Well, I think that he has a chance to be a starter in this league and be a good quarterback. I think
you
chance,
have
absolutely.
delivered the Kirk Cousins comparison to him before, not in terms of style of play,
Yeah.
but like settling into that type of career.
Yeah, I think he sees the field. He delivers the ball accurately. Unlike Cousins, he can escape pressure and make plays with his feet. I think he's a good player.
I hope
So,
you're right. I love to
I mean-
see good young quarterbacks in the league.
But if you go back, you're saying that I'm like some like Vol pom-pom waiver. I mean, if you go back to the draft process, I
You
was
were
not the only.
waving the pom poms for him back then.
Okay. Were there people who predicted Hendon Hooker go in the first round, or were there not? Right? Am I crazy? Do I need to go back and find mock drafts?
one or two outliers. Yeah.
There were some.
One or two outliers? Okay.
I mean,
No,
there are a
but
couple. There are 800 people that predicted draft. Could we find,
Right.
200 of them
Oh,
like
you're
Hendon Hooker?
making
Yes,
it
but
seem
are
like
we-
I was on an island, like, oh, Hendon Hooker.
Well,
yeah.
you also have to
I think
remember
you,
that at the
from your
time.
unique vantage point, were particularly enamored with Hendon Hooker.
Well, when
and
you see
plugging
someone
that
in person,
on top of the
sometimes.
Will Levis hatred here, I think you're somewhat pandering to that element of the Titans fan base.
Well, and
I made that the joke, but that's not what I'm doing.
And there wasn't a ton of first round talk with him because he was dealing with ACL.
Joe had him
at
as
the
a
time,
first
right?
rounder.
He had the ACL injury.
Did you not have him
Yeah.
as a first rounder?
I don't know.
I
don't think
believe I recall
okay.
you
Well,
thinking he
if
was
you can
fourth,
find
first
that,
round.
I don't think I did. I think
Nick,
think
go
I
ahead,
thought
find that
second
tape.
round. Yep, second. I did say he's a better prospect than Will Levis for sure. Look, I'm wrong all the time. I was totally on the Bryce Young train. Like, that's clearly who I would take first, and I was hesitant of CJ Stroud. So, we're all wrong plenty. Some of us can admit it. Some, have an issue with that and struggle with that. Stilly and Pauly.
I'm wrong on plenty.
But
wasn't
no,
wrong
this
on-
was
wasn't wrong
not
on
about
that.
some, like fan, Vol fan thing. I still think Hendon Hooker can be a good player in this league. I do.
So let's take this
Time will tell that one.
Let's take this to the general conversation and how much of they're 1-4. If it goes like we think it's going to, 1-6 is right on the horizon. So how much of an appetite do you think there actually will be to potentially selling off some assets if you're this front office, given their situation?
I think you have to. Landry's a tough one because, and you guys were saying this, they can't rush the passer with him. I guess you could look at it that way. We're not rushing the passer with him, so we could not rush the passer without him. But then you literally
no one's getting the quarterback.
What will you do for a pass rush? Who will you put on the field? Jalen Harrell, everybody loved in the preseason. I guess he's getting a big chance.
Yes.
Caleb Murphy, inactive last week. I guess he's getting a chance. Those guys, Caleb Murphy to me has played. He's not going to be a pass rusher in the NFL. Jalen Harrell, you give a chance because he's a 7th round developmental pick, but people went crazy off the preseason like they're wont to do. You have to, if you sell off, be willing to be bad at certain things. They weren't willing to be bad at running back last year. They weren't willing to take the optic hit and the sentiment hit with Derrick Henry. And I'd love to hear from some of the Let Rand Cook people today. I haven't seen any chef hats in the stand. I was looking down from where I was sitting. I've got a pretty good seat in the press box, and I saw, a row that was filled with Tannehill, Byard, Wycheck. Some of those are
Retro row?
Vintage retro, but these were recent, Henry, just a lot of former players, people who have not bought into new guys or current guys who have been around for a while. That's a problem. You need young stars. Now, again, I don't think most of us, I didn't bash them for trying to go and assemble this roster. But the requirement when you go and assemble this roster is that those guys play well.
Yeah.
And I said, the winner of March never, turns out to be that good. And at least one of them is going to be well below expectations. All of them outside of Pollard are well below expectations now. No? Cushenberry is
the free agents, you're saying.
Yeah.
The
big additions.
Yeah.
So Cushenberry is meh, but I think he'll get better. Pollard is good at what he does. I'd like to see less Spears, frankly, and we're going to see less Spears now. Jabari Small probably gets called up this weekend. But the rest, I wrote about Snead and Ridley. Look, 5 of those balls to Ridley, by my estimation, are not catchable.
Yeah.
But the 3 other ones he needs to go make a play on. And he's allowed to make a remarkable play on a pass that's not great. When you get $50 million guaranteed, that's part of why you're getting that. But the rest of them, Awuzie, Mike Herndon wrote this yesterday. Do you put him back in the lineup with how well Brownlee's playing?
That's a great question. You're paying a lot of money.
Put him in for Snead.
Sit down, son.
And so, they added all of these veteran players. Very few of them are living up to their billing. That's a problem if you go this route. If you go this route, those guys need to be good, and they haven't been good. So you let Rand cook, and right now what he's cooked isn't very tasty.
Well, and then how does that influence the strategy here too? Because I could see from their standpoint, all right, so you want me to sell off some of these assets for future draft picks. Well, what does that do for us right now? Because there's not a whole lot of winning that's going on. If you trade away a Harold Landry or you trade away Hopkins or whoever, that weakens your football team that's already weak. So how
Well,
much
especially with-
confidence do
yeah.
you have that you're going to be around for some of these draft picks?
Right.
I would think that Hopkins would be a chief one.
That one to
for
me
the
is
Chiefs,
a game,
maybe.
right? Because he probably doesn't have a future. You
Well,
got to
expiring
get the young
contract,
receiver.
yeah.
you
Expiring deal.
You got to get young.
And you're
this
not going
check-
to now for him. You're going to get what? You're going to get a fourth.
Yeah,
Maybe, yeah.
probably. Now Brinker told me when I sat with him for the analytics piece, their goal is to have 8, 10, 11 picks a year. Well, where the hell are they getting 8, 10, 11 picks
Start
a year?
trading.
Yeah.
They got to start trading these guys. And my sense is that Rand's gun shy on these things. I mean, we haven't seen him trade down in 2 drafts, and outside of dealing Byard, they haven't. Last year was the year to really sell off.
Yep.
Now, I also heard, they weren't getting offers for much last year. And so this is another example of the fans think everybody here is worth something. When guys play poorly here, they think their value is, at the absolute peak of what they ever were. You mentioned Simmons.
Trade Traylon Burks.
I think Simmons is a tough trade. I talked to somebody in the league that was like, people will like Simmons. There are people that will like Simmons, but that contract is massive.
Yeah.
And so, if you think a defensive tackle is getting you through this year, and helping you, maybe, but taking on that contract is an awful lot. I think it would be healthy for the Titans to trade Simmons to get a pick. It's not going to be a first by any means, but to get a pick and to force a restart of leadership on defense, because I think his leadership on defense has been generally oversold and look, they're number 1 in yardage. Defense doesn't have anything to do with Jeff Simmons's work. Not much.
615-737-1025, our phone number. The Rex Rant with Joe Rexrode coming up next. You're listening to Robby and Rexrode, 1025-1063 The Game.
Sometimes he wakes up on the wrong side of the bed. And sometimes he's just, well, Joe.
Awkward moment. Let's do it.
This is the Rex Rant, now on Robby and Rexrode.
Not only is Harold Landry a really good and productive player, but I do think that he's a culture setter. Right now, this is when a locker room really needs good culture.
Yeah.
Listen to the fans enough and you'll be sitting with them. An old Floydism. Mayo checks, keep cashing. Stilly, Mayo takes, continue to suck.
It is that time of the day, time for the Rex Rant with Joe Rexrode. You can check it out every morning here on the program. Joseph, the floor is yours.
I'd really prefer you not play back things I said, so I have to listen to them again.
Floyd did not invent that.
Well, he may not have invented it, but he said it a lot.
I
Who
mean,
invented
everybody's,
it? Who invented it?
I mean, Bill Polian was famous for saying it. I'm sure he got it from somewhere.
Okay. Do you know Bill Polian didn't get it from Floyd?
Yes,
Oh, you know this. Okay.
because it predates Floyd.
Okay. I'm just saying that's something he said a lot.
He did
I
say it a
love
lot.
that. I love that saying. But let's talk about you, PK. Let's talk about you today. Actually, can we have the do you have the exchange, PK? and
Must have
Brian Callahan the other
misspoken
day?
somewhere.
No. You just miswrote an entire piece. All right. Yeah, let's have that.
With the amount of short throws from Will, with the amount of checkdowns, with the amount of hot, that suggests that you've already got your verdict on Will and what you can
No.
do with him.
No, I don't think that's the case. No. I think there's a lot of things that he can do better, and there's things that I can do to help him better. And then there's around him can play better too. I think that we're really close. There's a lot of things that we do well, and there's a lot of things that we just haven't quite gotten over the hump on when it comes to, losing one-score games. Lost 3 of them now, where we're in position to have a chance to win, and we haven't done it. And I don't know that that's necessarily it's not all a Will thing either. There's things that I can do better to help him, and just haven't been there yet. And again, we're tight, we're close, and we got to play better. There's no doubt, and he's got to play better. But there's things that I think are encouraging and positive about it as well.
If the theme of the season, though, is to see Will do everything Will can do and get an ultimate verdict on Will, wouldn't that idea fall in line with letting him cut it loose more rather than playing it safe?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely calls that go down the field that don't get thrown down the field. So yeah, I don't. It was conservative nature in some of the runs because we run on the ball well. But yeah, I mean, we can just drop back and throw it down the field more. Sure, I don't know. I don't know how to answer that.
Oh, God. That second answer there is just like, what are you talking about, dude? So, PK, first of all, before I get to your piece, which is titled, Will Levis's usage suggests Titans' verdict is in, which is freaking stupid.
Thank you.
Do you not understand that when a quarterback drops back, he makes choices on where to throw the ball? Like, do you actually think that, like, they're just like, Will, make sure you throw. I understand they had the screens early, which was actually good and set up a touchdown. But, like, you think that this is the Titans are like, we don't want Will Levis. He's out. He's done. Let's have him go out there and throw a bunch of 8-yard passes. This entire premise is stupid and beneath you, and I'm very disappointed in you. That's my rant.
No,
Hope you like my rant.
Yeah,
Good?
That's
Good enough for you?
That's a good rant.
Okay, good.
I think that they've shrunken him down into conservatism. Yeah, I think he's shy about throwing anything aggressive.
Okay, but that's him.
That's
He's
him
shy.
because
Okay.
they've done that to him. Don't you think? Here's what's happened. He played this Superman ball early and made some really stupid throws.
Okay.
I called for him. Just be Clark Kent, right?
Okay.
Now they've gone so far the other way. Look, is he making conservative decisions? Yes. What's the counter to that? You say, hey, Will, don't be so conservative. We want you to open things up. Don't pull it down when you see a throw that you can make deep. They're allowed to coach him not to do this, and they're not doing so.
But what does this have to do with if the verdict is in, then you sit him down. The verdict is in?
They're not going to sit him down because they have no alternative. The way they're using him, I'm sticking with this 100%. The way they're using him suggests the verdict's in. He can't do things that they need to do in order to win football games. He threw a short and behind the line of scrimmage 9 times.
Right, but again,
he threw 5 yards or shorter another however many times. Look at his map. He's not doing anything. He's not pushing the ball. They're incredibly unthreatening. 95 yards on a day that the next worst passer in the league, Justin Fields, threw for 135.
Look,
There's no passing genius here.
No one's arguing that he hasn't been bad. He has, and I think that he is checking down fast. And you could put that on them if you want, but to me, I think he's checking down when he doesn't need to check down. And then,
all right, well, then you coach him out.
Okay, well, then he lets one rip late and throws a pick. He threw that one downfield, threw the other one downfield in the first half. Well, it should have been picked. It was dropped. I mean, this is not
his
them.
head.
This
His head
him.
is clearly messed up.
Sure.
Right.
But the verdict being in, I can't believe you admit. Like, Callahan's answer to you the second time was like,
it suggests the verdict's been in. He paused because he didn't know what to say. Because
because it was like, what? Really?
Yeah.
No, not because you were on to anything. Because he was like, what is this dude talking about?
Most people would disagree.
Oh,
with
well,
that.
yeah,
He
most
stumbled
people.
there because he couldn't say what he really wanted to say.
Which is what? Yes, Paul, the verdict's in. We know he's not the guy, so I want him to throw 8-yard slants only. That's our solution.
Well, he's awfully limited right now,
this.
and he's tying my hands.
Is it that crazy for them to know that he's not the guy? Like, I know he's not the guy. I said it on Monday. I'm out. Like, he's not the guy.
No,
I'm willing to say it.
It's not crazy. But again,
It's not crazy, but I'm crazy.
No,
for saying
well, hold on. It's not crazy for them to know it. What's crazy is we know it, so let's put him out there and play short ball with him, huh? What are you talking? That doesn't make any sense
they're
at all.
afraid of what's going to happen if he does bigger stuff.
If the verdict is it and they think he stinks, then go lose games for us, and we'll get the number one pick.
Well, that's what they're doing.
But you're saying that they're making a play safer. What are you talking about?
Well, they're losing with him playing.
Absolutely,
They're losing
my mind.
They're losing with him playing safer. You're getting a little hot about something that was pretty plain. Don't you think?
You hijacked a press conference, and Brian Callahan. No, he does not think you're right. He's like, huh? His answer was basically, huh? What are you talking about?
I will
the first and only person that's having this reaction. Have you heard this anywhere?
Oh, he was mad about this yesterday.
No,
I was
but
looking forward to it.
elsewhere.
No, I don't think
You
I've heard
think
about
I'm on
that.
an island in humanity? I'm on an island.
Absolutely do.
Everybody else like, oh yeah, definitely. That usage suggests that the verdict is in. Totally, that's clear.
I've heard several other people agree with the premise and the conclusion.
Yeah, I want to hear from them.
615.
Please call in. Positive PK. Do you agree with PK? Call in.
615.
Positive PK certainly does. Positive PK thinks that Will Levis is going to the Hall of Fame.
Positive PK thinks the Super Bowl is incoming. Just a minor blip on the radar right now. 615-737-1025. We'll get into a lot more Titans talk with PK coming up next. Robby and Rexrode, 1025-1063 The Game.
Stand back. There's a hurricane coming through.
Paul Kuharski from paulkuharski.com with us for the next hour, talking all things Tennessee Titans. As always, we encourage your participation on our phone and text lines driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Paul Kuharski brought to you by a Moment's Peace Salon and Day Spa and Parman Energy. Visit ParmanEnergy.com, your one-stop petroleum solution. And as always, the best question for PK on the text line will win a Moment's Peace Salon and Day Spa $50 gift card. So get those questions in right now on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. I'm assigning a percentage to it on the text line.
Doesn't matter.
Point. About 75% of the folks
Morons
are with PK in this argument.
You're all dumb. And Brian Summers, confirmed knower of ball, is on my side. I'll take that over. I'll take the 1% and Brian Summers and 99% can say whatever the hell they want. Also, I just got a text from inside the Titans organization clowning you and agreeing with me. You do stuff like this. First of all,
the PR staff is going to agree with anything that's more positive.
I didn't tell you it was a PR staff. I didn't tell you it was a PR
that's
staff.
Who texts during the show. I know how it works.
You sure?
They're going to agree with anything that makes
sure?
them look better. Also, Nick, in the continued disrespect of me and my appearance on the show, doesn't have me on camera today.
We got to get that fixed.
We do have a camera malfunction. I've been trying to work on it.
Okay. We'll get it figured out.
I mean, if you're taking me off, you should take Rexrode off.
I'll
Just
trade
broadcast
seats with
Robby.
you.
Just get me on.
I mean, if people have to look at that ruddy face, they
Ruddy.
Wow.
Yeah, that's hurtful.
Okay. Damn. Well, you can come sit here if you want.
No.
I'll trade seats with you.
I don't want to sit in that warm seat.
I think Rexrode's hurt deep inside that the people are on PK's side.
Well, there like a few goofballs here in the text line. They probably listen to Stilly's show. Listen, they threw screens early, and I didn't hear this from anybody else either. It's like they set up a touchdown. I mean, that's what the screen crap was early.
Look, they set up a touchdown, which is great. Then build on that further
I'm
in
not
the game.
disagreeing, but again,
it sounds like you are disagreeing.
No,
you're
I'm not
very
disagreeing with the
excited
premise.
about that 7 points in a game where they scored 17 and needed 21.
No, the quarterback is struggling, Paul. But if you have a struggling quarterback, first of all, and you call shorter passes and stuff for him, that doesn't mean your verdict is in. It means you're trying to help him do something. I mean,
because we all know that Will Levis's top skill is short passes. That is where the guy really excels. That's what everybody has said. Did you see those short passes that Will Levis threw? That is what we're going to build this team around.
So basically then, unless they call 12, you must throw
12.
it deep a game, then you're out on Will Levis. It's either bombs or you're out on Will Levis.
I don't say that entirely. I think they need to do more, and I think cutting it loose with Will Levis is a better – probably it gives them a better chance than what they're doing. We've seen them do this twice.
Well, in the last game, he threw
Once
2.
against
One
a
was picked,
horrific-
and one should have been picked.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's 2.
So do 3 and 4. Come on, do 5 and 6.
Well, yes. If
or
you
the
throw,
verdict is in.
This is very Stilly logic. This is very Stilly logic. If you throw one deep ball and it's picked, don't throw any more deep balls because they will be picked.
Well, his arm was hurting too, shoulder.
Yeah, that was weird that he used that as an excuse and his coach did not.
Yes,
and I like to
weird.
think they would not have played him if his shoulder was a factor because they didn't hesitate to not put him back in the game in Miami.
When he said that,
shoulder
I could not have rolled
was
my eyes
not
any
a
harder.
factor. That was bad play by him.
But that could also be part of the answer, right? I mean, it could be.
If they're playing him with his shoulder limiting his best factor, when Mason Rudolph, the reason not to play him is because he doesn't have much of an arm and can't do much. That's a bad call.
It is, but it's more logical than the verdict is in. I mean, it's bad. You're right, but still makes more sense than the verdict is in.
It's fine. This has been a nice, healthy conversation about a piece.
Yeah, that was.
Which you can check out at paulkuharski.com.
That's right.
By the way.
Which, had
I'm
quotes
driving
and
eyeballs to your
facts in
side.
it as opposed to this Harold Landry conversation, which we admit is made up to
Placate Ball
juice
Street.
up, juice up some radio.
No,
It's from the Stillman School of Radio. All right, here's what we're going to do. I'm going to make up a BS trade, overvalue the pass rusher, throw in a Tennessee guy to get everybody excited. We're going to spend a few hours on it. Here we go.
We haven't gotten a lot of talk out of this.
Yeah, we did. Hey, changed the subject from Will Levis.
It did.
Yeah, that was nice.
A welcome change.
Thank you.
Let's go to our 1025 The Game phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com.
Let me
Welcome
throw in a new
George.
twist. Let me throw in a new twist. They get 2 firsts for Landry. 2. Is that good? And Simmons, they give you a share of their organization.
George, welcome to the program.
Hey, good morning, guys. Listen, Paul, you may or may not remember me. I used to call him as Philly George back when you were with Kevin and Mark and Frank. So
What's
point
up?
of making is I've listened to you a long time. In reference to the earlier comment, we need Paul at 7:30. We need Paul from 8 to 9. We need Paul all day long, guys. The more
All
Paul we
day.
get,
No,
the
no,
better
I'm
off we are.
underappreciated here. I might not be
20
coming at 8 anymore. I'm considering giving up to 8 o'clock. Look, I'm going to take it away so that they can miss it.
8:45. Paul Kuharski.
Rexrode doesn't
There you
appreciate it.
It's Kuharski
I might go
from
on strike.
8:51 to 8:55.
Yeah, I may go on strike because Joe doesn't appreciate it.
How about a moment's peace spot
don't-
with Paul
don't-
Kuharski?
Don't
Go
do
ahead.
that, man. We need you as much as possible. But, hey, one quick question for you, and it's kind of a side question, right? I get why we're talking about Will Levis. He's a quarterback, makes sense. And to be honest, I'm not a huge Titan fan, hence the name Philly George. I'm an Eagles fan. But I'm watching the highlights of the game yesterday, or Sunday, I'm sorry. How does Joe Flacco throw a 25-yard floater that's up in the air for 8 to 9 seconds and it lands in the end zone for a touchdown? Like, can I get some commentary about the defensive backs? Because, again, Levis should take front and center. What kind of secondary? How the heck does that even happen?
Yep.
I think.
Thanks for the call,
Well,
George.
L'Jarius Sneed said guy got him by a step and he lost his leverage, and it was not a good looking play by a guy that they gave up a second round pick and a lot of money for to not get beat on situations like that. He had a bad game. He said he had a bad game. He's not lived up to expectations so far. The hope is that he cranks it up. He's a good player for sure, but we've not seen the best of him.
Well, and you had the Pittman play, you had the Pierce pass interference play. I mean, and even going back to the Miami game, right? Like, there's this talk all over Titans Twitter of him shutting down Tyreek Hill, and it's like, well,
the stats say what
the
they
numbers
say, man.
what they
You know.
say. If you go watch the game, Hill cooked him twice, and one of them was severely underthrown, one of them was severely overthrown. The point is,
he gave up a 3rd and a mile against Green Bay.
Yeah.
He gave up a 30-yarder on Aaron Rodgers' game-winning drive.
they need him to
against
be
the
a lot
Jets.
better than he's been. I mean, when you bring him in, and again, you were the team, and we've talked about all the knee stuff with him, but you were the team that decided to pull the trigger and give up a 3rd round pick to go get him and then pay him. And you're paying him to be better than he's been so far.
No question. Dustin from Hopkinsville says Paulie sounds more like Paulie when he tries to sound like Stilly. I think that's true. You sound like you're impersonating yourself.
That's pretty fun.
That is good. Let's go back to our 102.5 The Game phone line. Welcome in Adam in Portland. Adam, good morning. Thanks for calling in.
Yeah, so I really hope Snead figures it out, dude. Like, that's not my I can't stand to hear Jared talk anymore about this guy's knees, and he's worked on it for so long. So no, that's not my question. So Paul, all right, have you? And I've kind of already brought this up to an extent with Robby and Joe, but have you ever seen a quarterback like Levis? Not necessarily asked them about have they ever seen a bust that ended up starting so well, but do you have a comparable quarterback to him? Because he seems like a one of a kind, not to just rip the guy, but I don't recall a quarterback that's ever been so incredibly reckless this early and get so many chances. So I was going to see if you have a comparable quarterback for me.
Thanks for calling, Adam.
Off the top of my head, I'm not thinking of anybody. I've got bad institutional memory on stuff like that. I don't remember exactly Mettenberger's game, but I mean, he didn't do a damn thing, but he's also an undrafted guy. He didn't have the stature
Right.
of Levis in terms of a draft pick. He didn't win.
Well, we were talking about this, just the history of the Titans yesterday. Like, Locker did not go well. Vince Young started good. I mean, he won Rookie of the Year, got into the playoffs in his second year, and then the wheels fell off after that. Marcus, I mean, his first game was unbelievable, and then it was kind of downhill from there. And then 16, he was good, had good numbers, but it hasn't been like Levis. I said this Monday, and I think it's pretty clear now. Like the Atlanta game last year for him and the fourth quarter of Miami are outliers for Will Levis.
Yes.
Like, that's what it is at this point. And
Absolutely
yeah,
true.
those have been talked about a lot, probably too much, and we're probably a little bit responsible for that too. But those two performances for him are the exception, not the rule.
But it's not uncommon with a young quarterback to look at the best things he's done and say that's what he can be. The team needs to work on getting him there. Now, the more bad you see, the more and more it looks like, in fact, an outlier, like you're saying. I had somebody on Twitter yesterday tell me that the thing that would really cap the season is if Daniels can't play the Washington game and Marcus Mariota plays and beats the Titans.
Oh, There you
I
go.
hadn't thought about that.
Titans fans were very, speaking of that,
The Titans fans would probably cheer for that. They didn't cheer for Willis. But
Yeah.
they would cheer for Marcus.
I hope they're cheering for Derrick Henry. It's going pretty well for him. But that's what Titans fans got very,
In their fields?
yeah, with the Mariota Did you
Henry
see that?
reunion?
Mariota,
Yeah.
Derrick Henry reunion.
Nice.
Yeah, that was very
I mean-
nice. Very nice moment.
It was.
It was.
615-737-1025, our phone number. I've got a question for PK on the Levis front coming up next. We'll get to that. More of your thoughts as well on our text line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Robby and Rexrode, 1025-1063, the game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode, 1025-1063, the game. Robbie Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Nick Keyser, Paul Kuharski here with you on this Wednesday morning. Taking your thoughts. Again, your best question for PK on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Win a $50 gift card to a Moment's Peace Salon and Day Spa. We'll award that a little bit later in the program. So, PK, you know, I said this earlier this week. I, generally speaking, try not to be a hot taker. Try to be pretty measured with my approach. Last week, I was pretty close to being out on Will Levis, and then I saw that performance out of the bye week, throwing for 95 yards, the brutal interception that he threw, the inability to push the ball down the field, and I'm done. I have no confidence whatsoever that Will Levis is going to turn into a franchise quarterback. You can answer this if you want to. If you're not ready to give an answer, that's fine too. But what do you make of that? Are you out on Will Levis? Do you still have hope in the back of your mind somewhere that he ends up being the guy? How do you view the Levis situation and what we've seen to this point?
I don't have a lot of hope for him here. I think he probably winds up being a decent quarterback for somebody else down the road after a lot of time and a year on the bench with
Starting quarterback somewhere else?
And yeah, serviceable starting quarterback somewhere else down the road.
But I'd say that's an optimistic view of him.
They don't have enough time here for that. But they have nothing else to do but play him the rest of the season. And so maybe something comes of that. That's a lot of games. You know, a light switch could come on. You know, I allow, unlike somebody on the station, for the potential for somebody to get better. And so I allow for the potential for him to get better. I right now I see like a broken, confused guy, and I think there's a whole lot of stuff going on in his head, some of which he's conscious of and some of which he's not conscious of. And I think that's awfully hard to reshape. But I allow for the possibility it could get better.
Yeah. I mean, I don't necessarily disagree with any of that. I think that's a pretty sunshiny view relative to most people who've been watching him play this year. It's certainly possible. I still think the biggest, and I'm with you. I mean, I think a lot of the situation, everything like that, is probably affected him. But I still think the biggest issue with him, consistent accuracy. That's still even though I know the decision making has totally overwhelmed that this year.
Yeah.
That's where I'm not sure I agree on him being a starter somewhere down the line. I'm not discounting it as a possibility. Way crazier things have happened, but he just doesn't deliver the ball accurately consistently.
I agree.
And that's a hard thing to, they're playing Buffalo this week. Best example, by far to me, the most shocking example I've ever seen in football of a guy who I was like, that guy can't throw it accurately, and now he does.
It's extraordinarily rare that somebody gets better.
And so, but to me, and it's not that drastic even with Levis now compared to like Josh Allen in 2018. But for the most part, it's kind of like, again, like in basketball, whatever your jump shot is when you're like 17, you're not, when you're 27, it's going to be different. It's what your jump shot is.
Right.
So that's my biggest. I think he can clean up a lot of the other stuff, and he has a huge arm, and he can make amazing throws, and there's a lot that he still has to offer, but that's still my biggest
thing
question.
is, though, like you're right. He can make amazing throws. He hadn't made any this year.
We haven't seen it.
It hasn't happened.
The other thing, I haven't looked at it now, but his completion percentage going into that game was up 10 points from last year.
Yeah.
Is being up 10 points worth the exchange in what it's done for his yards per attempt and his yards per completion?
I mean, the thing is,
I think there's middle ground there, but it's too extreme to the completion percentage.
Yeah.
History that he was throwing
and checking down.
I mean, he was throwing in 1 second.
Right. Yeah. I also I do feel like this offense. I mean, I know they're totally different players, but that's a lot of what the Bengals offense has been, right? It's a lot of quick access stuff, easy completions. Then you take your shots. You got great receivers, but I mean, how much of it is just like that's how Brian Callahan wants to play? Yeah,
a lot of it is, and I think that's where you get a little bit into, is it a square peg round hole thing? Maybe it is. And then Levis isn't that good to start with. And then you're trying to ask him to do things that aren't his forte. I think, Callahan probably thought, well, this guy has some basic stuff that I can work with, and it hasn't worked out that way.
Well, the Callahan front, we got a couple of questions basically to this effect on the text line of how has the drop off from Levis been so drastic from last year to this year? Now, again, I think we start romanticizing last year a little bit too much and what he actually did last year, but there's no doubt some of those big throws that we saw him make and that were cause for optimism, he just hasn't made. And how much of this has to start, we all realize he's got to play better, and maybe the simple answer is he's just not good enough. What I wonder about beyond that, like how much of this is on Callahan too, because ultimately, when you are like if you are out on Levis and they have to go find another quarterback, is this going to continue to be a problem with Callahan in terms of it just not going the way it was advertised to go at this point with him? That's what I would be worried about if I'm a Titans fan. I don't know what the answer to that is. Like, again, I've said this before. We're 5 games into the Brian Callahan tenure. That's too early to come away with sweeping takeaways on him, but it's not been overly impressive to this point.
Well, PK, you had I know I saw something on your Twitter feed with film study to the effect of, plays were there. I mean, I know you can.
Yeah, it was super.
You can play it. You can play that game a lot, right?
Yeah, no, but the things he showed, intermediate throws from Levis, a string of them. You watch that, you come away. My takeaway was far more quarterback than scheme.
Go back to our
off of those. There were throws to be made that were late. That's another thing, late.
Well,
right.
the TD, shoulder or not, I mean,
The
way
interception,
late.
yeah.
I'm sorry. The interception was just
he was patting
waiting.
the ball, staring it down. Yeah, I mean, it doesn't matter.
You're screwed.
Your arm strength there. When you allow the safety to run from one side of the field to the other, probably not going to go very well for you. Let's go back to our 1025 The Game phone line and welcome in Ali. Ali, good morning. Thanks for calling in.
What's up, guys? What's up, Rexrode? What's up, PK?
Hey,
Paul. First of all, thank you for holding these coaches and players accountable. You're the we love you in this market. Second of all,
thank you,
Brian.
Maybe you could talk independently to Joe about appreciating me.
Yes,
send him an email.
Hey,
I love you too, even though your verdict in story sucked.
We need more people like Paul in this market but he's still soft on the special teams coordinator, not like he was compared to what he was on Ackerman.
Special teams coordinator's bad.
saying.
I don't know what else I can say. I mean, I talked to him a couple times about it, and he was like a deer in the headlights, and he's got absolutely nothing to say. He says that's horrible and we can't do it. Then they do it again.
I love when we think it's a positive call about you, and then we start ripping you. This is great.
All right. So look, Callahan, this man is Ken Wisenhunt 2.0. He literally looks like he's way over his head. He should not be the head coach. This team, the thing is, we saw Vrabel for so many years with a crappy roster. It just seems like the advertisement that we got about this coaching staff has been completely false. With Denard Wilson, okay, cool, yeah, he's good. But the offensive side, Tim Kelly was better than this guy as a play caller. He might be, do we think he's going to give up play calling anytime soon? Any changes on,
Ali, you about to back into something? What's going on? What's going on?
What is the beeping?
Let's be a little more concise.
That was wild.
I was worried about it for a minute. I thought he was about to back into something.
Yeah.
I don't know what was going on.
Was it like the doors open and
Maybe.
the seat belt?
Well, close the door when you're driving.
Not fastened or something?
Close the door.
Yeah. So that was very, I think it's
a little hot takey on Callahan.
It's a little hot takey, it's early, and I don't know. What do you think? You're the
it's way too early for Ken Wisenhunt 2.0.
No.
I mean, there's no doubt about that.
Ken Wisenhunt got to a Super Bowl, by the way.
He did.
Ken Wisenhunt was much more of a disaster than this is. The one funny thing I'm hearing is go to Rudolph to get proof of concept with Callahan. What can Callahan's offense be with a somewhat average quarterback?
Mm-hmm.
Do Rand Carthon, Chad Brinker, and Amy Adams Strunk need proof of concept from the coach they hired 6 games ago? I would hope not.
I mean, I would hope not too, but I don't know. I mean, I think Brian Callahan, his lineage, his experience. Again, if you look at the plays out there, it's not like they're running. I mean, they're running an NFL offense. I think that for the most part, you're getting bad quarterback play, and other things too. The offensive line still isn't great. Ridley, what the heck is going on with him? There's a lot of different ways you
Get
can
into
do
that
it.
kind of
But to
in a
look
minute.
at this whole thing and determine that the biggest issue is Brian Callahan. I mean, the head coach is always gonna, if you're losing, you're always gonna get blamed, right? But
the biggest issue is the quarterback's bad. That's the biggest issue.
That
with this
is the
football team
biggest
right
issue. That is the biggest issue. But they also overestimated some of the help they put in. Excuse me, some of the help they put in around him. The offensive line is slow to come around. That was a good game for the offensive line, but he also Levis threw the fastest of anybody in the league. And Brian Callahan, God bless him, was pretty candid. I thought Leroy Watson, I watched him particularly on some run plays. I thought he looked good. And Callahan said, he wasn't so great. That thing's still up in the air very much.
Yeah, that was probably one of the most
quite
like his comments on him were like, wow, very un-Brian Callahan, like really.
Yeah. And then, Ridley, a lot of those balls are uncatchable, but 9 for 27 is ridiculously unacceptable.
Well,
and he can't complain about when his targets are coming if he's not catching them when they're coming. He had a chance on some of those balls to make plays that would have affected the game. Pollard's been good, but overall offense has no juice. And most of that is Levis, but Callahan, I got to go back and find the quote. Callahan said you could scheme everything.
Yeah.
They're not scheming everything.
We'll get a little bit more in the Ridley situation as well coming up next. More of your thoughts on the Titans, 615-737-1025. Robby and Rexrode, 1025-1063, the game. Welcome back in. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Paul Kuharski from paulkuharski.com with us here on the program. We're taking your thoughts on the Titans as well. I got a pair of tickets to give away to see the Preds take on Connor McDavid and the Edmonton Oilers tomorrow night at Bridgestone Arena. In honor of PK, you call number 9, 615-737-1025, 615-737-1025. Caller 9 will win a pair of tickets to see the Preds take on the Edmonton Oilers at Bridgestone Arena coming up tomorrow night. Let's go quickly to our phone line. Welcome in Dylan to the program. Dylan, good morning. Thanks for calling in.
Good morning, guys. So don't take my comment with any credence, just a genuine curiosity. So I know this is something that's been ringing in my head that, Brian Callahan didn't call plays in Cincinnati, but we were told, he was heavily involved with, forming the offensive game plan. So now I'm thinking seeing how he's calling plays and, things aren't really working out. Like, do you think there was a reason why he wasn't calling plays in Cincinnati? Like, do you feel like maybe he's just not a good play caller and that's why we're having the struggle, like where he's struggling?
He wasn't calling plays in Cincinnati because his boss was calling plays in Cincinnati.
It's
It
the
makes no
model.
sense.
It's the model, Dylan.
Yeah, no, I get that. That's what I'm saying. I don't know, like, how often offensive coordinators are calling the plays, like in the NFL. Like, that's, not my area of expertise, obviously. But I'm just wondering, like, is this the reason why maybe he's just not a good play caller? Like, I don't know. I mean, I know probably some of it is on Levis, like, obviously, but just, I don't know. I don't know what, like, the level of responsibility is there between Callahan and Levis.
Yeah, thanks for calling, Dylan. I appreciate it. I mean, to answer his question, I don't know if Brian Callahan may not be a good play caller. I don't know.
But the quarterback's making it very difficult.
The quarterback's making it very difficult.
We don't know yet.
And the Zach Taylor stuff, like Zach Taylor was the play caller. So that's not an indictment on Brian Callahan. That's just when your head coach is the play caller, your head coach is the play caller, and that's what it is.
I mean, the NFL, Shanahan, McVay, and then on through that, LaFleur, that's the thing now, right? I mean, it's not everywhere. But those guys, those offensive quarterback guys, they don't call plays when they're the OC, and then they get a head coach's job, and that's when they call plays.
Well, and some of those guys, and we'll see about Callahan, but there are going to be situations moving forward where guys get head coaching jobs, and they haven't called plays before, and it turns out they're just not very good at it. And eventually they either got to give it up or they're going to get fired. But it's too early to make that determination on Callahan.
And if you're going to call for a change in the play caller would be Nick Holtz, who doesn't have any experience calling plays and is a disciple of Brian Callahan.
Well,
it makes no sense.
And I brought this up earlier, but look, Brian Callahan, these guys get these jobs through that job, right? Through Nick Holtz's job. That's how guys get these head coaching jobs.
Right.
Well, if Brian Callahan was that important to Zach Taylor, which I think Zach Taylor told us both that, right?
Yes.
And I believe him. Well, then Nick Holtz must be that important to Brian Callahan, right? Is Nick Holtz up to that? I mean, based on his career path there, I think that's where you look and be like, man, that's a little bit of a leap.
Yeah.
What he is.
Definitely was a bit of a leap. And, then you would think, well, if this thing goes well in 3 years, then maybe Nick could be on the Callahan path. If it goes well.
Yeah. It's just,
but right now,
growing people into a job that important is, that's tough. That can be problematic.
Yeah, I mean, the Callahan, is another interesting question on here, too, that may be a little premature, but Jackson says, is it concerning that he's likely missed on 2 of his 3 coordinators? Special teams is somehow worse. Holtz always comes across as a lost puppy in his interviews. Never understood how he got past the interview, and I can't imagine him coaching guys. Like, again, it is still 5 games in. Like you said, special teams has been atrocious, and they gave up another couple of big returns on Sunday. Look, maybe Nick Holtz and the offensive operation as a whole gets better. And look, I do think when you're talking about the play calling, the offensive staff, all those things, it's not been good enough. There's no doubt about that. But when your quarterback is playing this bad, I think it's hard to get a real read on what you've got there. It just is in today's NFL.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Look, it's hard to get a read on a lot of things, right? Because nothing is right, really.
Yeah.
Right? So we can't get a read on Callahan because the quarterback's not good enough. We can't get a read on the quarterback because he's turned into a confused, whatever. We're getting a pretty good read on him. We can't get a read totally on Ridley because the balls are inaccurate. We can't get a read on, keep going. There's some permutation affecting every guy or unit or situation.
Most of them have to go back to the most important position in sports.
Right. But makes it unjudgeable. But you have to be able to judge some things.
No.
The higher ups have to be able to determine quality, despite the fact that things around them are not perfect. And they're at a point where they have to make those judgments.
I mean, the thing with Callahan that I do go back to is it wasn't just off-season, really like Will, and he can be a good player. It was like
effusive.
Effusive praise. Yeah. And it's like, if you thought that, and now we're seeing this, what does that mean?
Right.
I think mostly it's what you said, Robbie, which is first couple weeks, it's like, wait, this is not at all what I thought he was going to be doing on the field during games.
He looked like he was in shock the first 2 weeks, particularly with like when you have turnovers that are that egregious.
Right.
I think anybody would be in shock.
Yes.
But I wonder now if there's like, okay, well, I thought he was this. I was stunned by what I saw the first 2 weeks. And now is there some acceptance creeping in of, oh, this is just what he is. And this is not good. This is not what I thought I had in this quarterback. And again, to your point, well, what does that mean if you misread it that poorly, if you're Brian Callahan?
They can't live with 95 yards passing.
No.
Period. No matter how much they want to tout their run game, which can be pretty good. It's not, it's not a week to week, they're going to be able to shove the ball down people's throats run game.
Right.
But they talk like that after doing it against Miami and Indianapolis, who are hardly, hard teams to run against.
What did you make of Ridley's outburst in the media after the game?
Yeah,
the frustration.
you're saying outburst with a smile. It was not a tirade. He was not irate. These words matter. I think it's shameful that ESPN cast it as that.
I did see that.
I think he was perfectly calm, and he swore a few times. And boy, are we prudes if that has to be called a tirade. A tirade, by definition, is long. The clip ESPN put up with this tirade was 16 seconds.
Yep.
Look, he has a fair objection about not being getting the ball early, but it's weakened when he doesn't catch the ones he could have caught out of the 8. I counted 5 of them as uncatchable. So I would, if he was 3 for 8, I would have been, okay.
That would have been a lot better.
Okay with it based on how poor the throws were to him. But this thing where Levis can't find him, can't get him a good ball, they went out and got this guy to make the offense go in a lot better way. And they can't figure it out, particularly the quarterback, but also I'm going to go back to this. You could scheme everything. You could scheme ways to get the ball into Ridley's hands in a safer, whatever way.
Well, to your point about not getting a read on things, Ridley is tough because, well, it's like, and we talked about this earlier this week, but Charles Robinson came on here and a few months ago and talked about how people thought Jacksonville misused him.
Yeah.
By the way, Nick Holt's passing game coordinator last year. But then Duraco, who has covered the Jags forever, said, in the building, they think Ridley screwed a lot of things up. And so there's that too. Just before we even see him play this year, there's that question. And now I'm looking at like things totally not working out. It's like, I got to think again.
At some point, there's a common denominator.
Yeah. I still think the biggest common denominator of all this is a quarterback struggling like he is.
Absolutely.
But also, then you throw that and you combine it with maybe Ridley's, off on some things, messes up some stuff more than you should at this point in the NFL when you get paid that kind of money. And that's quite a concoction.
Quite a recipe. And I said when they signed him, there are people in the league who had concerns about what he would be after he got a big contract. So you can stack that on top of it. What does he do from here is a big question. You want to see Calvin Ridley get back to work, and those guys have to make it function. I will say this. In a league where I'm desperate, I just picked them up on waivers. Got to do something.
Calvin, you just come in, save the day, baby. You got 2 catches in the last 3 weeks.
Something this week.
How about this from Will on Music Row? Which of these questions is the most true? Number 1, there's an organizational together everyone achieves more mentality that's ruining the team from ownership down. 2, Callahan's running out of ways to protect Levis in the press conference. 3, the players realize Levis isn't the guy, or 4, there's no face of the franchise right now.
Which is the most true
The
of
most
those
true
four?
of those 4.
Tuck him off real quick again.
Callahan running out of ways to protect Levis in the press conference. Players realizing Levis isn't the guy, there's no face of the franchise, or the together everyone achieves more collaboration mentality ruining the team from ownership down.
They're all big concerns.
Yep.
I think the collaboration thing becomes a problem when everybody wants to find blame. And if they keep playing this poorly and end up with a top 3 draft pick, while some fans will rejoice at the high draft pick, others are going to want to know who's responsible for this. You can scapegoat Will Levis for 1 year, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, that would be the maximum of that. And you know, again, with this ownership, Joe, I know you brought this up and think it's crazy, and I largely agree with you, but I'm not ruling out if it continues to go this way. Like, I don't know that Carthon or Brinker are safe after this year.
That's the big one for me, because the collaboration was going to fix a lot. That hard ass was a real problem for them.
What percentage?
Well, that hard ass would be doing better with this roster.
Yes.
Titans go 4-13. What's your percentage chance that Amy decides to fire Brinkthon? Carker?
Carbrink?
There you go.
6%.
6? Okay. That's high.
I mean, you always got to leave a percentage with this group. I think it's what we.
But 6 is, I mean, 6
I was
is more
gonna
than
say
5.
I was going to say 3, and then I was like, well,
Yeah,
it's pretty low
I think-
given that the Adams family, does some stuff. You?
They do, but yeah, I'd put it at like 2%. I mean,
I think y'all are crazy. I think
Yeah?
it's higher than that. Yeah.
So you-
given her history, yeah,
Well, I
I'll go
know-
higher than 6.
But her history to me, actually, in my mind, makes it less likely because
It
we've been
should.
talking about it so much.
I think it should. I'm not convinced that it does.
Okay, what's your number then?
I'll go like 25%.
Holy cow.
Whoa!
I think y'all are
Stop the press.
I think y'all are way underestimating her ability to just decide something on
Yeah.
a dime.
Yeah, I mean, it's possible. To me, it would be wild to do all the things they've done. I mean, you wrote that was a great piece, Brinker's Analytics. Do more of that and less of the verdict is in crap.
Nice.
Thank you.
I'm taking advice
No.
from a guy who hasn't written and won't write a Titans piece for the foreseeable future. It's terrific.
Yeah, well, we write about different things.
College ball.
Yeah. But what was the point I was making? God dang it! I
No, no,
I
so
tricked myself.
thrown off.
I
So
sidetracked
thrown
myself
off
to
by
rip
somebody
PK.
calling him for his gig.
God
Well,
dang it.
one more segment with PK coming up next. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 the game. Join Jared Stillman, Chris Sanders, Derek Mason at Twin Peaks and Cool Springs this Sunday for the pregame show from 9:30 to 11:30. They'll break down the Week 7 matchup against the Bills, give you the latest updates before the game. Pregame show presented by Parman Tractor and Equipment, Sundeck Nashville, Sloan's Motorcycle ATV, and award-winning Blue Note Juke Joint and Blue Note Crossroads Bourbon. Welcome back in. Final segment of the day, Robby and Rexrode. Joe, you had a point that you were making and then didn't make, and now are finishing.
When Paul's so
You got
rude,
distracted.
yeah, get your mic together there, Chief. When Paul so rudely interrupted me by ripping me when I was just trying to rip him. So the point I was making, bringing up your analytics piece, is if you're Amy and you have invested all this into this, and I mean, it's a big change now, right? And yeah, a little bit of a half measure change maybe last year. Now it's the full thing. And you're really going to entertain starting over? I can't, especially with all the criticism she has, to me, rightfully received about rashly making decisions in the last few years. I think I'm 2%, and I feel like that's 25% is wild, Robby.
Have you seen her the last 2 years?
I know. But again, that's part of my reasoning.
I said this to Brinker this time and previously when I talked to him about analytics. It sure seems like the time that these systems take to build insulates you, buys you time. And he said, they take time. There's no getting around the fact that to get these things to where we want, starting from zero, it's a process. Now they use draft stuff for this last draft, so it's practical to think, based on what he told me in that piece, that their draft analytics stuff played a role in Latham and Sweat and Brownlee, but also in Cedric Gray and guys who are not off to good starts.
Yeah, you're never going to hit everything, but right now this draft class, and that's part of it too. The draft class looks pretty good,
so I think it's starting to show up. And Stilly, I think, is killing them for a Woozy being hurt. I mean, the injury stuff is way better than it was, for Vrabel. The injury reports are shorter and guys are missing less. Yeah. So you can pick out the one guy who's hurt and say, oh, the cancer curing machine didn't work on a Woozy. Or you could say their injuries are down. I'm not saying that Chad Brinker has them down, but I'm saying organizationally
they're down.
And I think most of it's luck, quite frankly, and that they were due to regress to the mean. But you can't blast Chad Brinker's analytics for not doing anything. I mean, I don't know that it's doing anything or not. They're working on asymmetries in a way that they never have before, and we don't see as many hamstring injuries. So I don't know if we give them a gold star for that, but we're not killing them over hamstring injuries.
This thing taking several years until it comes to fruition. It's almost like the Kramerica version of the NFL, right? Just like, you can't fire me.
Right.
Ooh, that didn't go as I expected at all.
Don't you worry.
Next idea: ketchup and mustard in the same bottle.
Let's go back to our 102.5 The Game phone line. Welcome in John to the program. John, good morning. Thanks for calling in.
Hey, good morning, guys. Hey, Robby and Joe, I think you got the best sports talk show in the city, and the addition of Paul makes it great. I look forward to this segment every week. So,
thank you very much. They do have the best show in the city.
Yeah, I agree. Hey, I want to go back quickly to the Bears game in the first half, particularly because that's the only good football I can really remember. And Paul, I remember you putting out a tweet, and I agreed with it, that I think early in that first half, it was a tweet somewhere along the lines of, wow, it's kind of clear the Titans have clearly upgraded at play caller or, at scheme, something along those lines. And I agreed with that at the time. Obviously, it's taken a turn since that first half. My question, I guess, would be, it really seems like this season's hinged after that first half with, we know what happened in the second half with the pick six and the punt block for touchdown. It seems like either confidence really got, shook at that point, both quarterback and maybe play caller. Maybe that's a sign of, not great leadership, as you guys have talked, from the top down. Or it could be that, Callahan and Levis was early in their tenure, and now defenses have kind of caught on, and there not been a counterpunch yet from Callahan to kind of combat that. And just wanted to hear your thoughts on that.
Caught on to what? I mean, I don't think for a defense to catch on, it got to catch on to some success. And the Titans haven't had any success in the passing game this year for defenses to counter. I think defenses can do what all of these defenses have been doing. There's not been success for Will Levis.
Yep. Congratulations to Will on Music Row, our winner of a Moment's Peace Salon at A-Spa and gift card with the what's the most true question. Callahan running out of ways to protect Levis. Players realizing Levis isn't the guy. That kind of highlights where they're at right now. A lot of things true that are not going well for the Tennessee Titans.
I picked face of the franchise, by the way.
Yes.
I picked that.
Very good participation. We appreciate that as always. PK, we may or may not see you next week, depending on if you decide to show up.
Yeah.
I appreciate you, PK.
Yeah.
I take it back.
I
don't take back the verdict is in
all
ripping,
rings,
but I
all
take it
rings
back.
Hollow. All rings hollow. Happy birthday,
We love
Simon
you, PK.
Garski. Don't
Go,
lock
Simon.
the box. Do lock your lock.
Jason Big Joe up next. This is 102.5, 106.3 The Game.